The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Monday. It's an exciting spring day. We're thrilled to be here. We're going to be with you for the next 3 hours live, answering your questions, talking to you about things having to do with autism and how we can be more effective, more efficient working with our children on the autism spectrum. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, we know that that's a priority for you. It certainly is for me. And before, since we're talking about being more effective, more efficient, want to also remind all of you that the Combating Autism Act has passed the House. And if you want an opportunity to thank your representatives for having passed that bill, remember that this is the bill that is going to help our men and women in the armed forces who have children on the autism spectrum to be able to get the services that they need and to continue getting services, especially after they are no longer in harm's way. What we've seen is now the number for everyone is 1 in 88, but it has been that number for military families for several years now. And we know that those children whose parents are serving in the armed forces have frequently gotten the bottom of the barrel in terms of services. Imagine all the things that we go through, right? But imagine a parent having to leave and be gone for months on end and be in harm's way. Imagine just when it's your turn on the waiting list to get services, being stationed someplace else around the world where they didn't have services, or you go to the bottom of the list waiting for the services again. We can't have that, right? We need to all step up and make sure that we're trying to level the playing field for everyone, right? So that all children have access to services. But for heaven's sakes, our armed services families should not be left in the dust. If anything, they should be at the front of the list. I think we can all agree on that. If you want to thank your representatives in the House for having passed this bill, then I want to encourage you to go to www.autismvotes.org. There's the website for you, and you can click on your state. You can even put in your zip code, and it'll tell you, it'll give you a letter. I mean, they really do it for you, right? And you don't have to do that. You can customize the letter however you want. But, we know, because we talk about ABA a lot, that it's really important for any behavior to be maintained. It has to be reinforcing, right? So you might think, oh, well, the House already passed it, so we don't have to worry about them. Let's focus on the Senate, except that we want our legislators to continue to feel the pressure and the reward, if you will, that comes with voting their minds and conscience in terms of helping autism. So I think it's really important to reinforce those representatives, send them off a letter. It can literally be 2 clicks and you're there, or you can customize it however you want, but they'll give you the address, they'll give you the phone numbers. Whether you're better writing or phoning, call and say thank you. They do keep track of that stuff. As odd as it may seem, they have interns that's just their job to put the little hash marks, like yes, no, and they look at it at the end of the day and at the end of the week and at the end of the year. So really important to thank them. And then while you're there, if you want to go over to the Senate side and send your senators a little note saying, hey, if you want my vote, you need to be paying attention to the things that I think are important. So that's the Combating Autism Act. I mentioned ABA because that's something that we talk about a lot here. ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, and we know that it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And what a wonderful thing that it is. Not only is it is effective for all of our kids, whether they are newly diagnosed on the spectrum and they have very few skill deficits and just need a little bit of support, or whether we have children who are very profoundly affected, whether they're new on the spectrum or have been there for years. ABA is effective for all of our kids. It's never too late to start. I know people ask me a lot of times, well, the boat's kind of sailed on that, right? No, the boat does not sail on ABA. And they use ABA not just on children on the autism spectrum. ABA is an age-old science that's been around and been useful for all walks of people. They use this on senior citizens in nursing homes. They use this for Olympic athletes. They use this for kids in preschool. They use this for teenagers. So it's effective for you. It's effective for me. It's effective for everyone that we work with because it's about behavior and setting somebody up to be successful with their behavior. Isn't that a wonderful thing? So we will be talking about that a lot here. I want you to know, though, out the gate, that I am not an expert in ABA. Despite the fact that we're going to talk about it quite a bit, I am not an expert. I want to be your conduit, though, to the experts. We like to have people come in and talk about a wide variety of different things, but ABA is at the core of it. We know it's a huge, huge subject. Our kids are all different. There's so many different circumstances to take into account. Nobody's trying to give you child-specific because your child is vastly different, but we'll try to give you tips and hints of how you can be really effective working with your children. That's what it's all about. And I mentioned I'm not an expert, but I'm a parent. So that's why I'm so passionate about talking about these things. My son was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, and bless his little heart, he is about to be 9. 2 weeks from tomorrow. I just can't hardly even get over it. I'm going to get all verklempt, and it's only Monday morning. But he is just the joy of my life. And can I tell you that there were very many dark days when I thought, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. I really don't. But I held on to my belief that there was more potential for my child, that he had not reached that full potential that I knew was there. He still hasn't. But he is his own little person and doing so well. He's completely included in 3rd grade, excelling, excited about going off to 4th grade, excited about his future. And I had the opportunity yesterday to, how sometimes you just don't measure time passing except when you see other people, and you don't measure progress except when you're around other people. It's just, we get used to things, right? And my son graduated from his ABA program. He had 5 years of intensive ABA in our home, and last year he graduated from his ABA program right on his 8th birthday. And so we've been doing skills still at home this last year, and he's grown a lot. It's been a lot of natural environment things this year because we're not doing therapy. I'm doing therapy with skills, and I think I've discounted that a little bit and said, oh well, we continue to see progress, but it's not like when we had people coming in the house and doing things. And but it was really interesting to me yesterday because my son and I went with some friends that I hadn't seen in at least 2 or 3 years. And they had seen my son 2 or 3 years ago, whatever it was, and we went to the Arboretum in Arcadia. And it was kind of amazing because they kept on saying, he's doing so well. He's doing so well. And that's always a wonderful thing to hear. And they were just fascinated with him and I came home and said to my husband, my husband said, how did it go? Because I know you really wanted to visit, and sometimes taking an 8-year-old to an arboretum, isn't going to be the most conducive toward getting to visit with people that you haven't seen in a while. And I said, we had a really good day. My son was so excited to see all the things at the Arboretum. He had a good day. And, which meant that he was not perfect, but he was Mr. Conversational and so interested in so many of the things. And I really got to look back at the end of the day and say, yeah, he was interested in the flowers, and he was interested in the birds, and starting conversations. And sometimes he would jog the conversation off to the side, but 8-year-olds do that. So it was a pretty wonderful day, and to see that progress through other people's eyes, I was like, yeah, we really have come a long way. And even in the last year, we've come a long way. And I tend to forget that. But we're in a very good place right now. I know, I just want to knock on wood. But I know that's because of ABA. I know that's because we had really quality ABA at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I hope that wherever you are in the world, that you are getting yourself either together for more ABA so that you're getting the number of hours that you need to get, or that you're getting ready to start. I want to help you to do that. I want to help you to hook up with the experts who are going to tell you how you can be more efficient, more effective working with your child. And I want to help you to figure out whatever the stumbling block is, whether it's funding, whether it's fear, whether it's what you think is going to happen to your other children who aren't on the spectrum. I want to help you to get past that point so you get to the ABA. I want you to get to the good part, because I'm at the good part and it's pretty fabulous. And you deserve it, and your kids deserve it. So there's lots of different ways, and what I'm getting around to, lots of different ways you can participate in the conversation. Tell me what you need and I'll go hunt it down for you. So if you're watching us on autism-live.com, autism-live.com, you can see on your screen that it says either live or rebroadcast. If it says live, there's a box there that says your questions that's active. You can type something in there and it pops up right now. Go ahead, try. You can send me a little hi if you want to. And we can have a conversation in that way. Oh, look, and there's a hi. I see you there. Okay, so if you're watching and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching in any of the other different ways that you can watch the show, there are lots of different ways that you can participate. One of the easiest is via email. We're going to start to show you some of those things on the screen, but you can email us at this address and tell us your question, your comment, your concern, something that you want to see more of, something you want to see less of. Feel free to vent. Feel free to complain. Say, Shannon, I just can't stand it when you talk about this, that, and the other thing. Stop it. I can handle it. I'm here to help you. And if I'm doing something that isn't helping you, let me know so I can change it. But don't expect me to be a mind reader. I gave that up to be an autism mom. Okay, besides email, you can also phone in. We're here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. There's somebody to answer the phone. When we're not here, there's a machine that answers the phone. Tell us your topic in the email or your question via the phone. What we'll do is we'll cover it on the next live show. But if you email us, we'll also send you back a typewritten response. If you call us, we'll, if nothing else, leave you a message if we can't get a hold of you. You can also Skype in. Later on today, we're going to be Skyping with a special guest. And if you'd like to Skype in with us about a topic that you're going through, or you're a mom or dad blogger, or your child's made significant progress, or your child isn't making progress, you name it. You want to talk to us, call us via Skype. You can call from around the world, very inexpensive, and we'll be happy to patch you into the live show. And if you're having a good hair day and have a camera, so much the better. You can also get a hold of us via Facebook. Facebook is a wonderful way to interact with us, because not only do you interact with us, you interact with everybody. And I see you guys holding each other up. That we'll give you the question of the day and you guys answer. And if somebody says, I'm having a bad day, you guys talk to each other. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You can also Twitter. That's the thing I'm trying to think of. I'm not as proficient on the Twitter, I'll be honest with you, but I'm getting better about it every day. So feel free to tweet with us. We enjoy that. I mentioned that there were lots of different ways to watch us. You can be watching us on Blip TV. You can be watching us on YouTube. You can be downloading our shows for free. We're a free download on iTunes. So that's another wonderful way you can watch us. And we're also available on Ustream. If there is some way that you would like to watch us that you're not seeing, please let us know. That's really important information. We want to be available to you in the format that is helpful to you. It's free right now, and it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in several different ways. But if there's something that we're not getting to you, I know some of you have written in and said you want the audio only on iTunes, and that is coming. I want to let you know that I know I keep saying that, but it is coming. And one day it'll be here, and it'll be here forever. So we'll look forward to that. We like to start every single morning with something called the jargon of the day. We do this as a little mini warm-up because we need to make friends with the jargon, right? It doesn't matter, who you are, where you are. There's a certain amount of jargon that comes with autism, that comes with ABA, that comes with psychology in general. And as a parent or a teacher or practitioner, there are going to be some words, even if you're a teacher, some of these are involved involved in education, but there are words that are going to be outside that area of jargon, right? So no matter which area you're in, there's going to be jargon that you don't know. So important that we start to gain access to these in a way that we can use them. So it's going to help our kids. It's part of being that really good team member that you want to be with your kids, on your kids' team, because this does take a team, right? So we take one word, one phrase, one anagram a day, and we demystify it, give you an actual definition, and then give you a working definition. A slightly watered down, not as specific, but hopefully it helps you to begin to understand. As you take these terms and start to look at them through the lens of, looking at your child's behavior, it all starts to make sense. I know that seems far-fetched right now, but it's on the day when it does start to make sense, you go, oh, I get it now. And then you start using the terms. I refer to that as going to the dark side. When you start, I say reinforce all the time now. People go, wait, what's up with you? What are you getting a degree in psychology? What's that about? Yes, I'm not through college, but through life, I'm getting a degree in psychology. So here we go. Today's is for you is receptive language. We're going to go to meetings and we're going to hear receptive language and we're going to hear expressive language. Really important for us to know the difference between these two things. And not only that, to know where our child falls in these two things, where their strengths are, where their deficits are. Okay, so what in the hey nani nani is receptive language? Okay, here's our actual definition. The process of attending to communication, spoken or nonverbal, comprehending the communication, and being able to react appropriately within a specified time parameter, even when what is being conveyed contains multiple facets. All right, it's not the easiest definition. It's not the most complicated, right? Because it's not peppered with a whole bunch more jargon, but let's take a look at our working definition, which is the child's ability to understand what is being said to them. So we have expressive language, we have receptive, and I'm sure that tomorrow it'll be expressive, so I don't want to give too much away. But I am a visual person, so I like to think of it that expressive is the stuff that goes this way. When somebody expresses themselves, it goes this way. It's what they're saying to someone else. That's expressive language. And remember, expressive language can be sign, it can be all different kinds of things. It's being able to convey something so that somebody else understands. That's expressive language. Receptive language is the stuff that comes this way or this way to your ears, because it's eyes and ears, right? So what we see, and I know I certainly kind of took it for granted that people, that they have these two things, and they're even equal, and your abilities are even and equal, except usually they're not. Let's say quite often they're not. Let's say that a child might have quite a bit of expressive language, that they can speak and they can convey ideas, and they're really good at that whole monologuing thing. But when somebody speaks to them, they aren't able to understand in a quick and efficient way what is being said. Have you ever seen that thing? I'm a little bit this way personally. Somebody says something to me and it's almost like there's a tape delay sometimes that my ear has to figure out, because I'm a little bit hard of hearing. My ear has to figure out, okay, and fill in the blanks. My brain goes, oh, what they said was this. Oh, okay, yeah, no, I can do that. But so I am. Sometimes I'm on a little bit of a tape delay. You see this all the time in a classroom. A really capable kid who, you just see so much potential, but then you say something to the child and there's a disconnect. The child, and it's almost like there's a time lapse thing and it takes them a couple of minutes. Sometimes you have to say it a second time. There's a lot of prompting going on, which could be a signal that the receptive language is not as strong. Now, what about on the other side of this equation? What about if the child has virtually no expressive language? There's no functional communication skills, a lot of times people assume, well, if they're not speaking and they're not signing and they're not gesturing, that there's nothing going on there, that they're not having thoughts and that they're intellectually challenged. And we see so often, especially with kids on the spectrum, that just isn't the case. That there's a whole lot of receptive language going on, a whole lot that they're getting all this information, they're just not able to express themselves. So really important to know where our kids are on this scale. You know, which one is stronger in your child, expressive or receptive? Is your child challenged in both areas? Can we strengthen both of those areas? You betcha. You know, and I think it's true of most people that we have an area that we could strengthen a little bit more. For me, obviously, I'm pretty expressive, right? You could drop me here and have me talk for 3 hours without a pause, without taking a breath, and I'm pretty okay. But my receptive language, quite honestly, is not as strong. So, you know, that's an area for me to work on. And we absolutely can work on these areas ourselves. But more importantly, for our purposes today, we can work on these areas with our kids and we can strengthen them. I mentioned earlier that I personally right now am using the skills program, and we actually are going to be talking more about skills later on today. We have a special guest joining us with a really pretty incredible offer from the skills people. And there are lessons in the skills program that are just about receptive language and that are just about expressive language. Thousands of lessons, literally thousands of lessons that help you break it down into, okay, this is exactly what I want to do to teach this. We know that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing, right? It has to be rewarding on some level. So all we have to do is break down the skill into very small increments and make it reinforcing, and we can grow the skill. So we can definitely do that with receptive language, which is a very cool thing. All right, it's time for the question of the day. The question of the day we put for you on Facebook as well as here. We will have a chance later on today. It's in the schedule to check in and see what you guys are writing about to us. I love... You know, we try to have different things on different days, and it's never going to make everybody happy. There are some times when people go, you just want us to write in negative things, because sometimes I do. Sometimes I want you to vent, because I feel like we get it off of our shoulders. But not only that, we remind everybody that we've been through tough stuff and that we survive, because there's people coming behind us, right, that are new to this journey, and everything feels like, oh my gosh, you know, this is happening to me and it's never happened to anybody else, and why is this happening to me? And for people to be able to read and see, okay, I am not the only person who went through that, and clearly this dad or this mom or this teacher survived it. It's hope, right? Hope and survival. And sometimes we ask you things that are fun and silly, or bragging about your children, or just dreaming. But today I want to know, what's the most ridiculous thing you have ever heard someone say about autism? What is the silliest, most ridiculous, you know, and sometimes you get angry because people say things and you just want to go, really? I think for me, I mean, there's so many different things, but I mentioned this the other day, that a friend of mine said, oh, you're so lucky that your son has autism, because it means you get free childcare. Yes, no. and I'm still friends with this person, because I know in that moment what she meant, you know, I bless her heart, but, right? Pretty ridiculous. And one of those things that I felt embarrassed for her is what I did. And I said, honey, you need to never say that to anybody ever again. That's just really, what? What did I say? And I said, really? Seriously, you have no idea. But never ever say that to anybody ever again. So I want to know from you, though, what's the most ridiculous, redonkulous, silly, you know the word I want to use, not smart thing that you've heard anybody say about autism. And you can write that into us, and we'll check in later on. I'm looking forward to being outraged and laughing with you at some of the things that people, because we have to keep a sense of humor about it, right? It's terrible. It's terrible, and this is the world in which our children live. We need to overcome all of these ridiculous obstacles, but we have to keep a sense of humor about it, right? Okay, we always have a topic of the day, and our topic of the day, I promised you guys, because we've been doing ABA for beginners for the last 2 weeks, and so this week, all week long, we're going to focus on teaching language. So important. That's why we're doing receptive language today. There's so many different things for us to be able to do, and I really hope that we can put a bee in your bonnet, right? I'm channeling my great-grandmother, that there are ways that we can teach language to our children. And remember, language comes in all different, we're talking about functional communication skills. So it's not all verbal spoken, right? And even though we all want that for our children, right? We all do want that. What we need first is functional communication skills. And ultimately, you know, if you think about what you really want in life, I mean, my son is very verbal now. There was a period of time in which we did not know that that was ever going to happen, quite frankly. I remember somebody telling me about a child with autism who said to his dad, "Dad, can we go to the store and get more video games?" And I cried because I said, is my child ever going to say that? Oh my gosh, does my child say that on a regular basis? And much more. But quite honestly, one of the things that we're still working on with my son is all the rest of verbal communication, as you know, vocal as well, but making sure that he gestures and points and, you know, moves his body in such a way that he conveys information. You know, so all aspects of communication, we can make it reinforcing, and we can teach it. We can teach this. So it's a very exciting thing. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, today it's Monday, so we always have our stress tip on Monday. Very important to start off the week with the right mindset, right? But we have 2 guests today. We're starting to do more interviews, and I hope that's going to be the case because I find that very reinforcing. So I mentioned that we're going to have somebody from Skills at 10:30 today. We're going to have Merrick Williams with us. He is an amazing young man who comes from a background of education, and he has been on the Skills team now for a couple of years, and he's got a really incredible offer for all of us for the summer for Skills. I don't want to give it away, but it's a really exciting opportunity for you to be able to afford this program in a way that hasn't been available before. We, you know, as a former teacher, because I am a former teacher, and now, you know, I'm a mom, and one of the things that we all worry about in the summer, and you guys have written in and asked me about this before, is I call it shrinkage. I'm sure that there's some other technical term for it, but I call it shrinkage. That we, you know, as teachers, we say goodbye over the summer, and people, the kids, they go and do whatever they're going to do for the summer, right? And it's not an even playing field at all. Some kids are going to camp. Some kids are sitting around playing video games. Some of our kids have fewer services as a result of the summer, that, you know, maybe their speech is cut back, or sometimes they lump it all together and say, oh, well, we're going to give you 10 hours of speech over the summer, but we're going to give it to you all in 1 week because that's so incredibly useful to us, right? But that's what the school has to offer. And what we see is, whether you have a kid on the spectrum or not, what we see is that kids come back on the first day of school, and you can see who kept up with their learning and who didn't, because there's shrinkage. I always talk about the pizza dough, how, you know, you put the pizza dough down on the thing and you push it out, right? And what does it do? It shrinks back in, and you push it out some more, and it goes out, it shrinks back again, but it never shrinks back to the original ball. It just keeps shrinking back a little, and you push and it stays out a little bit further. Well, our kids are a little bit like pizza dough, all of them. I'm not just talking about on the spectrum, but especially our kids on the spectrum. They've done studies to see what happens in a 2-week break when kids don't have therapies and they don't have services. Shrinkage. Well, for the neurotypical kid who has shrinkage, you know, as a teacher, I go, oh, we don't have to have that. But, you know, they get caught up usually. in a lot of cases, sometimes. So people kind of go, I don't know about you, but as a parent of a child on the autism spectrum who regressed especially, I don't want to see shrinkage. I want us to be constantly moving in a direction or at least maintaining, right? I want the chart to go up, but I'll take maintain. We already get 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I don't want to go backwards. So Merrick's going to come in and talk to us about how, because some of you have written in and said, I don't know what I'm going to do over the summer. And I've said, I'm using skills. I really believe in it. And I've seen what a difference it can make for my child. So Merrick's going to come in and talk to us about a very special deal about what we can do over the summer. I think you're going to be really excited. And then at the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to have a special guest Skyping in with us, Maria Dismondy. I hope I'm saying her name right. She is the co-author of a book that has come into my life, The Juice Box Bully, Empowering Kids to Stand Up for Others. I think this is a really important book, and we're going to be talking with Maria. I bought 2 of these, one to give to my son's school, because I was that impressed with it. And there's a pledge in the back of the book, which we're going to talk about. But this is a great book, not just for our kids, but to give to our children's schools, because I was making this point to somebody the other day about bullying programs and how important it is. We've seen all these studies recently about our kids and bullying. And, we know it's a problem for all kids, but especially for our kids. And somebody was saying something about, well, they should have more this and that and the other about bullying for our kids on the spectrum. And I said, yeah, but this is a case where we need to fight for these services for the rest of the kids as well, because our kids pick it up usually from the other kids. Because there are times when our kids turn into the bullies, right? And this book kind of addresses how that can happen. So we need to have services for all of our kids on the spectrum, and the kids that they go to school with who aren't on the spectrum, so that they know about bullying and why they shouldn't be bullies. So we're going to talk with Maria, and she's written other books as well that we'll talk about, but the Juice Box Bully and how this might be a really good thing to donate to your child's school. So that will be at the 11 o'clock hour. Very exciting show. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're going to give our stress tip of the week, so that we start out relaxed, right? Stick with us.
I am grateful for Autism Speaks because they allow families like me to have hope.
They're working towards having these children live better lives.
There's a space for you. Yeah, there's a world for you, and there's a community that is behind you.
And one that has really been able to be the singular voice for people who are involved with and who care about autism.
I do have autism, but I don't let that become a disability for me. Autism Speaks is going to continue to help those who need it, and just look at all the stuff they've done so far and you will be impressed.
3, 2, 1.
And you need to support the walks. We have to raise awareness, but we also have to raise funds to do the work.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks for one main reason, is they are allowing me to focus on the research.
The work that Autism Speaks has been doing is critical for keeping autism research on the radar screen.
We proclaimed 2 April as the World Autism Awareness Day. I'm very proud of the UN and thankful Autism Speaks.
Getting the health mandate bill passed in New Jersey particularly, we needed to be able to make an argument, not just do this because it's the right thing to do, but do it because it's cost effective.
When everyone else told me nothing was wrong with my son, I got information from a website that told me something wasn't right.
I am so proud of Autism Speaks.
for creating these beautiful ad campaigns, which have reached people who are not affected by autism and have also created a greater climate of compassion and understanding.
It's been really great for Bachman to have gotten involved with Autism Speaks early on. I think everybody here feels like they really make a difference.
To make sure that we generate as much money as we can for Autism Speaks so we can all solve this puzzle together.
There's no way we could have come this far without our families, without our supporters to date, but there's so much farther we have to go. And everybody's invited to join this cause. We need all the help we can get to make the difference we know we can make.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's Monday. It's time for our stress tip of the week. And this week, our tip is to know your resources. And I'm not just talking about resources and, who do you ask for information about this and that and the other thing, but what do you have working in your benefit, right? We all have to step back and take stock and say, okay, look, this is what I have going for me and this is what I have working against me. And while, I think it's really good to make a gratitude list and say, here are the things that, are working to my benefit, because there's always somebody who's got it worse, right? I love years ago when I thought, on one of the darkest days in terms of autism, I was listening to somebody speak and I was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed, and there were dishes in the sink and, all kinds of issues, and I just really was having a moment where I thought it couldn't get much worse, and of course it always can. You got to be careful about that. But I remember something I heard, I don't know whether it was a disc or something that somebody had given me, but they were talking about how sometimes the thing that, is really kicking your keister is something to be grateful for. And I had just been saying, I got to go take care of some dishes. The dishwasher was broken and and I had everything else in the world to do, and my son was having a hard day, and I was really grumbling about doing the dishes. And anyway, I heard this thing, and the person was saying, that somewhere there's somebody who wishes they had dirty dishes, because maybe that's just not something that they have access to at this point in time. And I thought, whoa, that's a wake-up call, right? So I think taking a really good look of saying, what are your assets? What do you have going for you? From financially, whether it's that, maybe you're one of those lucky people that has money in the bank. You still can't afford autism, because we've already established on the show that no one can, no matter, if you inherited some sort of estate, you still can't afford autism. But if you have some money to work with, that's an asset, right? And if you don't, then that's just not in your asset column. That's most of us on this journey through autism, right? But what else do you have going for you? What can you put to your benefit? What can you make work? Do you have a friend who's a lawyer, so that you say to yourself, well, that's one thing that I've got in my plus column. I can't call on them 32 times in this process, but I could call once or twice and say to them, hey, I need you to look over this IEP. That would be in the plus column, right? Some of you might think, oh man, I wish I had that, right? But we all have something going for us. Are you somebody who is really calm, cool, and collected and can, be arguing the IEP things for yourself so that maybe you don't need a lawyer? Is that one of the things in your benefit column? Do you have a great sense of humor, and so you're going to be able to get through? What is the list of stuff that's on your asset page? Because those are the things that you're going to lean into and say, how can I use this? I love when we were at the walk for the Los Angeles Walk Now for Autism a couple of weeks ago, and one of the couples that we interviewed, the Greenbergs, they do the Team Green Bean, and in fact, I think we're going to have the mom on the show at some point, but they had a child on the spectrum, and they hadn't even, I'm sure that they had taken stock of what kinds of things that they had going for them, but there was the first year that they were going to do the walk, it was actually the aunt who said, I'm going to start a team for this little boy, and we're going to walk, and sent to the dad and said, you should do something. You have connections, you have some pull, you should do something. And he, by accident, according to him, hit a button at work, and he's a very talented talented agent at the very top of things in the Los Angeles area in Hollywood. And so he hit his send all box by accident, and within 15 minutes he had raised $22,000 for autism. And over the years, this family has now blossomed. Their team Green Bean has blossomed because what they have is access to Hollywood people, and so they have taken that as and used that in the way that they can, and have raised over $1 million for autism, which is a pretty impressive thing, right? Because that's what they had working for them. I would be willing to bet that if you would take the time, I don't have access to that, right? Most of us don't, but we have different things. I've mentioned before, my husband is a voiceover actor, and my degree is in theater, and I used to teach theater in college. So we know a lot of people who are actors. And a lot of people who are singers and love to perform. So years ago, when we were doing this for ourselves and saying, okay, what's in our asset column? We were like, well, we know a bunch of out-of-work actors. And how can that be an asset for us? And I remember my husband and I kind of getting giddy and laughing about it, but we decided to do a benefit and to invite people to perform and invite other people to come and see it. And it made a huge difference for us in what we were able to fund. So you really kind of have to, say, okay, what? And my mom was a quilter, and my mom gave us a quilt to auction off at the event. So I don't think that there's anybody who's watching who doesn't have something in your corner. And it may be intellectual property, it may be somebody that you know that can help you to do something, but write it down. Take the time to say, okay, here's what we have going for us, and then use it to the best of your ability. And it may be that some of the things on the list you won't use for a year, but to know you have assets, I think, lowers the stress to a certain degree. The other thing that I like to always say is when you're making your asset column, it's going to bring up and you're going to go, well, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. It's okay to write those things down too. And to start to think in terms of your life before autism was one way, right? And now it's going to be another way for a period of time, especially while you're targeting ABA. Things are going to be different. Your schedule is going to be different. Your life is going to be different. Your job might be different. But take a look and think to yourself, okay, of all the things that I used to do in my life before autism, how many of those are things that I still need to do because only I can do them? And how many of these things are things that I can outsource to other people? When we're in a crisis, and when your child gets diagnosed with autism, let's face it, for a period of time, it's a crisis. It doesn't have to stay that way forever. But for instance, if somebody in your family had been diagnosed with cancer, you would change the way in which you were going to do things. Maybe you're the person who always cooks dinner. Always, always, always. That's your job in the family, and you always cook dinner. But you want to ask yourself, am I doing that because I love doing it? Am I doing that because I'm the only person that can do it? Or am I doing that just because that's the way we set it up? If you love doing something, that's something to hang on. If you're doing something because you're the only person who really truly can do it and do it properly, that's another reason to hang on to it. But if it's possible that somebody else could do it, and maybe they're not as great at it as you are, but they could do it and get the job done, and it's not something that you absolutely love, it might be something to hand off to somebody else for a while. Not forever, but I would be willing to bet that there are people in your influence, in your sphere of influence, who would give you an hour or two. What we see so often with autism is that families say, I don't know what to do to help you. And that was really the case when we did our benefit, and I called people and I said, I need your help. I need you to come. I want you to sing a song. You tell me what you want to sing. I need you to do a scene. I want you to do an improv, whatever. And you know what I heard overwhelmingly? And I felt a little funny about asking for it, but what I heard overwhelmingly was people said, oh, thank you so much. I haven't known what to do for you. But when you give somebody an assignment that's something that they're good at, they're thrilled to do it. So if you have a friend and you say, you know what, I really need your help. If you could make one meal a week while you're making for your family and you freeze it for my family, that's really what I need right now. I know it feels funny, but this is an emergency. This is an emergency. You're an emergency. You don't need to be any more overwhelmed than you already are. So look at what your assets are, figure out what only you can do that you still need to take charge of, and what you can outsource, right? It's what so many of the businesses in the United States do, and there's a reason why they do. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but I'm asking you to think in terms of doing that. Outsource. If you have a friend who's a party planner, then outsource to her and say, come up with an idea for me for a benefit so that I can pay for what I need to do to get my child diagnosed, right? Just as an example. But you have something in your arsenal. You have assets. I know you do. You might have to think about it a little bit. And if you sit down to do it and it's just depressing you because today is not the day, then save it for another day. But have it on your plate in the back of your head. What are my assets? What do I have going for me on this journey through autism? I'm resilient. My child is resilient. My child is brilliant. And I have a belief in my child. That's a huge asset. And by the way, you can attempt to outsource that, but you want to hang on to that too, because that's going to give you joy and help you to get through the different stages. But I guarantee you, if you look and relax, you will see that you have assets that you can use, and don't be afraid to use them. This is an emergency. All right, stick with us. We're going to come back and we're going to have a success at school tip in just a few minutes.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. What's an institution? A hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of TheOutSpot.com. TheOutSpot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back to Autism Live. At some point, we all get to the age with our children where we got to make a decision because they need to be educated, right? We know that it's important for our kids to have access to education. We make a decision to homeschool or to take them to public school or to take them to private school. It's a really difficult choice for a lot of people. I think it's a case-by-case kind of thing. I so admire people who homeschool and that have the patience to teach their own children, because that would not be me. That would be a recipe for disaster. My child loves to go to school. It's social time for him. He needs it. And we are fortunate that our public school system, at least in my son's school where we are at, we have a wonderful principal, have a wonderful staff, and so it's a very happy time for him. I know that that isn't the case for all of you, but if you are sending your child to a school, in particular to a public school, there are some things that I have learned along the way from other parents. Believe me, I didn't invent this wheel. About making it that much easier. We are always trying, when we're doing therapy, we try to set our kids up for success, right? So it seems to me that there's a recipe to set our kids up for success at school and a way that we can make it easier. Just yesterday morning, early in the morning, I was sitting there with my son, and he loves for me to tell him certain stories over and over and over again. And he likes to hear the story of the morning that we went to the hospital for me to have the C-section to have him, and about how he was so big that was the only way that they could get him out was through C-section. And I always tell the story about how my mother and my sister were supposed to meet us at the hospital and bring donuts, because we had been told that the way to get the best care for your newborn was to sort of grease the skids and give donuts to the hospital staff. That would be the way that you would ensure that you got the best possible care. I know it seems a little ridiculous, but what could it possibly hurt, right? So they were tasked with bring the donuts, and they were so late because they were making they went to like a Krispy Kreme, and they were having to make a new batch to take up so that they would be fresh, and they got there just as my son was being pulled out, so they missed the whole entree to it because of the donuts. And my son finds this story hilarious. But I do think there's something, and he always says, why again? Why did you bring donuts to a birth? Because we were trying to endear ourselves to the staff. Well, we really can do that to some respect at our school as well, that it's a really good idea to give back. You know that there's going to be a certain amount of adversity that's going to happen with the IEP, especially, I would love to tell you that in recent years, with all the things that we know about autism and all the discoveries that have been made and all the progress that's been made, that it's getting better and better and better, except the economy is getting worse and worse and worse, and that has a direct effect on how we meet the school at the table to have the IEP, right? So instead, we're hearing stories that's getting more and more aversive at the table. So adversarial, I think, is the word that I want. And yet, we know that if we're bringing our children to this school, that we're leaving our children, our most precious thing, we're leaving with these people that we just sat around a table and didn't get along well. So how do you make that work? Well, first of all, we always know we want to try to keep it as polite while we're disagreeing as possible, right? And we had Valerie Vanneman last week on saying we're not raising our voices, we're behaving. Even if they're not, we're always behaving and maintaining, a professionalism that may seem weird because we're talking about we're talking about parenting, talking about our children, but we have to maintain a professionalism, even if they don't. And a lot of people will say, when you go to the IEP, take cookies, take lemonade, which I usually do. I didn't this year, I don't know why. But I say that, put the emphasis where the emphasis belongs. The kids in your child's classroom and the teacher. And if there are aides involved, these are the people who are going to be involved with your children. So find a way to give back. Now, for you, if that means there are parents that I know that give a pizza party at the beginning of the year or a pizza party at the end of the year to thank the teacher and to thank the other students for having been such good buddies to their child, I think that that's a great solution. But it isn't the only one, right? There are lots of different ways to give back to the school. And I think there was like 2 years ago that I went to a PTA meeting because I was mad. And I'd been to PTA meetings before, but not all of them. They always had them when we had clinics. So it just never, for a couple of years, it didn't work out really well. But they were going to have a workshop on bullying. And I'd been to the PTA meeting where they signed off and said that they were going to have this bullying interactive theater group coming. I was like, woohoo, this is fabulous. And my son, I think, was in first or second grade. And they allotted the funds for it, and that was wonderful. But then when it came down to it, because there were budget cuts, they could only do one presentation instead of two. So they had to make a choice, and they decided to give it to the upper grades, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders did not get the presentation, and I was not happy about it. because I'd been there at the PTA meeting and I had said, you know, when they had taken the vote about should we spend the money on this, and I was thinking that it was for my child as well. So I went to the PTA meeting to express myself, expressive language, and instead I got the receptive language back of the PTA president, who's a wonderful, very powerful, fierce woman, said, I'm sorry, and what are you doing for the PTA? I'm sorry, you've come here with a complaint. What exactly are you doing for the PTA? And I, of course, said, well, I'm incredibly busy. I have a child on the autism spectrum. Great, then you can be the special needs chair. What? Right? And then I went, oh, really? I can't really say no. And I'm the worst special needs chair of any school PTA ever. But people, they can refer people to me. But I found other ways that then I went home and said, okay, wait a second. And I've heard this from other moms, how important it is to be in a position of saying, here's what I can do. Before somebody comes and says, here's what we need you to do, right? Before that, we can say, here's what I can do. And I try to make sure that I give to the school and that I give to the classroom. There were a whole lot of times when they would do the fundraisers and they would want somebody to work on the fundraiser, and I wasn't available during the time and I couldn't buy the wrapping paper. Autism parent, huge bills, I couldn't buy the wrapping paper, right? But if I did ask myself the question, what can I do? I was able to come up with different things. And I've shared with you guys before that I direct a play for the 4th graders every year now, but also for my individual teachers. One of the things while I was there volunteering, especially when my son was in kindergarten, I started taking pictures and documenting everything that would happen and putting it together in a slideshow at the end of the year that we gave each kid a very inexpensive disc of the slideshow of the pictures. And I gotta tell you, teachers want to have my son in the class because they know that they're going to get a parent who, while I've got issues, right, and I'm going to ask for things to be a certain way, I'm going to be willing to show up and I'm going to help support what's happening in the classroom. And again, I did not invent that. I just found my way of doing it, but I had heard from other parents of kids on the spectrum how important it is that in addition to fighting and advocating for your child, which is the pentultimate, right? That you find a way to give back to the school and give back to the classroom. For you, that may mean buying crayons when they're on sale this summer. There are several stores that they'll have crayons that are practically free. Maybe that's the thing that you're going to do is spend $2 and get a bag full of crayons that you're going to give to the teacher. Or it may be that you show up on Wednesdays and sharpen every single pencil in the classroom. Or it may be that you come on Friday and you bring cookies. Whatever it is to you, remember we were talking about what your assets are. What is it that you have the time that you could do so that you could let the school know that you're on the job and that you appreciate, remember, rule number 1, in order for any behavior to be maintained, and we want to reward good behaviors, right? So if the school is doing some things right, find something to reward and then reward it with what is capable for you. This is not the thing that you stay up all night long and make the cupcakes overnight, right? And this is not the thing that you stress yourself out learning a new skill, but something that you already like to do that you could do for the school. Different things for different people, but find a way to give to the classroom, find a way to give to the school. You'll find that your time at the IEP table will be better. I know it's like all political, right? But it's worth it, trust me. And I have to say that there's a certain esteem that comes to the child when you show up in the classroom with something that everybody's happy and joyous about, that your child feels like their place in the world that much better. Really, really fun thing. So give back. All right, it is that time of the day, and it's a time of the day that I just love, especially on Mondays, because we get to see a new episode of the A Word. We show one episode per week, but we introduce it on Monday and get an opportunity to talk about it. This is this wonderful documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders that you guys know if you watch this show, I'm in love with this for so many different reasons. First of all, I applaud this family for being so brave, to let us come into their home and be the fly on the wall to see what's happening. Because already at this point in the series, this little boy was diagnosed while he was 2, very young 2, and he is about to be 3 at this point in the series where we're watching, which is significantly further behind reality, you understand. But he's had about 6-7 months of therapy, and we're beginning to see the arc of what happens in ABA therapy. Yep, he takes 1 step forward, sometimes it's 2 steps back, sometimes it's 3 steps forward. We're seeing that he's acquiring language, he's asking questions, he's speaking in sentences, he's making wonderful eye contact. But we're also, so, and that if that's all it was, that would be brilliant. That would be enough, right? But we're also getting to see the emotional journey that the parents go through, which I got to tell you, there's something really cathartic for me, having been through this process. Watching it again with another family is an amazing thing for me, because there was so much stuff that happened that I was so stressed while it was happening that I always say, you know, when we have a child with autism, we don't get to miss the miracles. We have to see every single miracle. When the child says the first sentence, you know, it's that much more present because we had to fight for it. But there are things that you miss and you lose because of the stress of it. So to be able to watch this family and remember what we went through, I just gained that much more of an appreciation for what my son did, how hard he worked, how hard all the team worked, and what we went through emotionally. So it's very cathartic for me. But for some of you, I know you're writing in and saying that as you're preparing to start therapy, that it's helping you to get ready, or that you're at kind of the same place, and that it's reminding you, oh, right, sometimes you are going to take a step back, but that doesn't mean that it's all going to be downhill, that we're going to get back and more. So such an important undergoing that they're doing here, this ongoing documentary. And then the other byproduct of it is that you get to see different elements of the therapy, and I always like to talk about it and say, did you see this? Did you see that? So that we all learn from it, because we all need to keep learning about ABA and how it works. So let's take a look and see what Jack Riley is up to this week. This is the A word.
A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, talking a lot this morning. Now I down my pieces. Next time. You no say with me.
That's right, kiddo. Very good. Okay, Jack Riley, 1 more minute. Say okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to play something else for now? What do you want to play?
Pancake.
You want to play pancakes? Oh, is this the sign for pancakes? What do you want to work for, Jack Riley? Do you want to work for puzzle, for trains, for jumping on the bed? What do you want to work for? More jumping? Okay.
Pancake. Pancake.
Okay. Sit down. Sit down here, though.
Pancake.
You want pancakes? Can you say that better? Say, I want pancakes.
I want pancake.
Okay, should we go see where the pancakes are then? Okay, all right. Let's go find Dad. Come on. Come with me. Walk with me. And we'll go find Dad, okay? All right. Can you open the door? Turn. There you go. Nice. Let's go see where those pancakes are. Say, I'm hungry. Ask you quick questions, okay? All right. Okay, look. Okay. What's your name? No. What's your name? Nice job. How old are you?
8.
Good job. Sit down, though. Okay. Where do you live?
Jessica teaches Jack Riley other social ID questions such as where do you live and what's your last name.
There you go. Nice job. Here you go. Slow down. There you go. Hi.
You look cute. I love you.
Group kiss. Group kiss. Ready? 1, 2. Oh, nice hands.
Nice hands. Nice hands. Nice hands. That's
Nice hands.
Nice hands get you more attention than bad hands.
Big brother. Who's big brother?
Who's the big brother?
Who's the big brother?
Yes.
Where's the little sister?
Where's the little sister?
Where? Is she here? Is that
Right
little
there.
sister?
Right,
Is she-
that's right.
Can she have a kiss? Can little sister have a kiss? Thank you.
I hope. I hope.
Jack Riley is needing less prompting to appropriately gain attention. Jessica only gestures to get him to ask. They introduced the skill about 7 weeks ago, and it's becoming less contrived and is occurring naturally in situations. Here's a look from 7 weeks ago, when Jessica first introduced gaining attention. In the beginning, she tempts Jack Riley with an item he wants, then prompts him the whole way, gesturing and physically showing him what to do and what to say.
Jessica, I want pancakes.
Want pancakes?
Hey, look at me when you say it. Say, I want pancakes.
Want pancakes?
As time goes by and the skill becomes more natural, the prompting will completely fade away.
Ready? Okay, show them how you can use a straw. You gotta go all the way. Show me. There you go. Good job.
Feeding used to be very time-consuming and difficult for Cheryl and Mike. Jack Riley would swat away food fed to him and would refuse to self-feed. He now feeds himself and even uses a fork. His diet, though, is still limited, but it's growing. Drinking has also been an issue for Jack Riley. He's typically only drank out of baby bottles or bottles with a hard nipple top. They've tried getting Jack Riley to drink from a cup, but every time they would present it, he would try to lap it up like a cat, anticipating all the fluid to come rushing at him. Now they have introduced drinking from a straw, so he has an item to drink from that is age appropriate.
Now suck it up. You want to do that again?
Yeah.
Want to do that again?
One more time, and then you can play.
Yay!
Very good, Jack.
There you go.
You guys got that exact same pitch level there. I don't know how you duplicate.
Do you want the purple iPhone?
Papa.
Okay.
Okay, what's the matter?
You can have applesauce.
Hey.
You can have it. You can have it. Come here. Can you show me? Bite for mommy.
Your turn. Do you know? Jack Riley, say, I don't want banana. Okay. What do you want then? What do you want then? I want.
Okay. Can we have a spoon, Daddy?
One of the food items Jack Riley eats a lot of are bananas. For some reason, though, seeing a banana really upsets Jack Riley. He enjoys eating it, but hates the sight of it. One of the issues is that biting solid food is very aversive to him.
Fear of the banana. Someday we'll tell him he eats one every day.
More awareness than it was in the yogurt, so we have to go in baby steps with it. That's fine with me.
This is history. I might drink the whole thing.
With like no prompting, no.
Yeah,
you're right.
Okay, kiddos. See ya. Have a good weekend.
Say thanks, Miss Jessica.
You say bye. Can you say bye, Jessica?
Look at her. Where is Jessica? Where is Jessica? There she is.
Thank you. Oh, thanks.
Just in case you were wondering.
You're Jessica. You are.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great weekend,
See ya.
Jessica.
I just love this show. Okay, so so many different things there to talk about. We won't talk about all of them today because we'll talk about it the rest of the week. But let's start from the top. And you saw that Jessica, the therapist, is sitting in the background, and Jack Riley's sitting there with a puzzle. and he's making the different sounds of the different letters. And it looks like he's just being left to his own devices. Well, actually, they're working on independent play there. And it's so important that we teach our children how to play independently, appropriately, and age appropriately, right? You know, one of the early episodes that we saw, the dad said, and I love this dad because he's a dad who's willing to talk about what he's feeling, right? Whether it's the frustration or whether it's the joy or the fear. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I've made my husband sit down and watch it because a lot of times the guys don't want to vocalize it, right? So this dad is like the perfect dad because he says the things that so many of the dads are feeling, and he's not trying to hide it, which is incredible. And early on, one of the early episodes, the dad said, you know, my life is so different than the average dad's because I sit here and he says, I'd like to watch 10 minutes of a football game, but I feel guilty if I do because, you know, he'll sit there, but he's not doing anything and he's not learning anything and he's not getting any closer to talking. And I feel guilty for having stolen 10 minutes to watch football when I'm not trying to get him to interact. And that's such a reality, right? That so many of us, we're running around with our kids with autism and we're trying so hard to get them hooked up and whatever, that we don't ever get downtime. That we constantly, and there is that thing in the beginning about making sure that we're giving them enough opportunities, right? But we need for our children to get to the place where eventually they can spend 5 minutes sitting and playing independently. It's good for them. It's incredible for us, right? But we're not talking about them sitting and spending 5 minutes and doing self-stimulatory and, you know, flapping their hands or toe walking during those 10 minutes, doing something that's actually productive for them. It's quite the liberation. And you see that she's sitting there and she's watching him, right? Because if he starts to do something that's inappropriate or isn't productive for him, she's going to intervene. This is not a skill that came to this child overnight. They've been working gradually up towards this so that now he can play independently, and she's praising him for the fact that he's playing independently. And I would imagine fairly soon what they're going to start to do with him is do play centers where they'll give him, this sounds bizarre, you guys, but the truth of the matter is it's brilliant. They'll give him a little visual schedule and they'll set up like 4 or 5 little play centers. They might start with 2 or 3 and they'll say, okay, so, you know, first you're going to go play with the blocks, and it'll show it on his little visual schedule. And then they'll say, and then when I tell you to, then you're going to go play with the video game on the phone. And then you're going to transition and go to this, because that's the whole point, is for your child to be able to explore a wide variety of toys, to transition and begin to transition themselves. Because what we don't want is what we see so often in the time now is that you have a 16-year-old child who only plays video games, right? And has no idea how to budget their time so that they're doing things that are reinforcing to them. They get stuck in a groove doing one thing. Well, you know, you can work on that with that 15-year-old and you can make that better, but how much harder is it to start working on that when they're 15 as opposed to when they're just turning 3, and build in the fact that there's lots of things to do, and if you, it's okay to transition from one thing to another and find all the joy in life of doing varied and different things. But we start with teaching them appropriate play skills and then setting them up and reinforcing them for playing by themselves. So here is a moment where, you know, when he's got a toy and he is playing with it appropriately, he's having an educational moment, he's having a conversation with himself, he's doing the sounds of the letters and identifying the letters. This is not a moment that dad needs to feel guilty somewhere down the line if he's watching 10 minutes of football and the child is playing this way. This is really healthy, independent play. And it's just, you know, it's that thing of spreading it out to other activities now. And please, it's an educational toy. So really interesting. What I also noticed too is that she was giving him a countdown to transition from that, because we've seen before that Jack Riley, like a lot of our kids, will have difficulty transitioning from one thing to the other. It feels almost like a death. You know, I'm having a good time doing this. Why do I have to stop doing this and going to something else? He doesn't have enough of a world global view to understand I can come back to this another time. So he gets emotional about it. But they're helping him him to see, but you're going to switch from this to this and we'll come back another time or another day. So it's getting less and less. And they're also not giving the attention to when he starts to be upset during a transition phase. So nothing will reinforce it, right? But do you hear what the therapist says? She says to him, he's busy playing and he's talking to himself, and she says, okay, whatever it is, the countdown, she says 2 more minutes, and he's still busy, because he's very focused on what he's doing and he's having a good time. But did you hear what she said to him? She said, say okay. And so he says, okay. And this is something that we still do this with our son from time to time, although sometimes he just does it automatically without being prompted. That was a verbal prompt that she gave him because he didn't give the appropriate response. And what we don't want to do is let our children get away with being non-responsive. You saw at the end, he's gotten his reward that he's playing with the phone, which is what he really wants to play with. We see that that's very reinforcing for him. And it's time for Jessica to leave. And so they're saying to him, say goodbye to Jessica, and he's in the video game. He's focused. This little boy does not have a problem with focus, but we need from time to time to be able to interrupt focus so that the children, learn, okay, there are other things that are happening, and that they don't go so far into the focus that they miss other things happening. So they don't let him be non-responsive, and to the point where Jessica covers up the phone. And they say, where is Jessica? Much easier than saying goodbye. Where is Jessica? And he points at her so that they've gotten a response. Really important to do. We still do this with my son. For a lot of our kids, some kids have difficulty paying attention to something for any amount of time, and others of our kids on the spectrum can get such laser-like focus on something that's reinforcing to them that it's literally like lights on, nobody home. You can't get them to break out of it. We don't want to allow our children to be non-responsive when they're in that state. They gotta keep some semblance of knowing what's going on in the world. So we see that again and again and again, and by asking the child, say okay or say yes, mom. My friends all make fun of us if we go to the pool, and I'll give my son a countdown. And when he was little, I would say, okay, 5 minutes. And he would be tootling off someplace, and I would say okay, mom. And he'd go, okay, mom. And they thought that was hilarious. But now when I talk to my child, not all the time, I still have to prompt him from time to time. And I'll say, okay, so we're leaving in 5 minutes. He goes, okay, mom. He knows he's got to respond to me. I don't want to have a teenager who's non-responsive, and I don't want to have a child who's so in his own world that I say something and he can't duck out to be a human being and remember that there are human beings there, right? So important, and you'll hear that a lot with our kids on the spectrum. If they don't respond, we prompt them and say what to say, and they say it back, but after a period of time, we fade back the prompting, and they start to do it themselves. We still sometimes will have to do it. Okay, and then we see, here's a little boy who has started to begin to have functional communication skills, right? Sometimes he's signing. I don't remember what the sign was for pancake. And they're asking him to say the words, and it's not enough to just say pancake. They're making him say, I want pancake. He's having to say it all in one sentence. If you haven't watched from the beginning, go back and watch from the beginning of this series. They have it's a whole YouTube channel that you can watch everything that we've gone over so far, plus there are episodes that we haven't gotten to yet because we're moving slowly. But watch how this child didn't just spontaneously start saying sentences. They built up to it very slowly. And you see that he's frustrated. He wants what he wants, right? And he made the sign for pancake, and she's not getting the pancake. And now he's saying pancake, pancake. And she says, oh, okay, you want a pancake? And he's nodding his head, and he's making the sign. He's being crystal clear here. And she's not trying to tease him, but she now says, say, I want pancake. And he says, I want pancake. And there's still no pancake. And he starts to, because it's hard enough for our kids to communicate. But when they communicate, when they make the attempt, they want the reinforcement. They do. Yes, they're starting to fade him to the point where he's got to wait for things, right? And they're showing him that you don't always get it immediately. We had to do it immediately for so long to get the idea that you need to communicate, you will get the thing, right? But they're kind of deliberately holding off and waiting a little bit now to teach him some patience, right? But the thing that I want you to realize is look at how hard he's working to get the thing that he wants. He's saying it, he's making the sign, he's doing all these things, he's learning that communication is really important, but he wants the reinforcement for it. And he wants to know that he's been heard. Isn't that the same thing with us? We want to know that we've been heard. As the mom, if I say, hey, 5 minutes before we leave the pool, I want acknowledgement that I have been heard. And so my son has to say, okay, mom, right? Our kids need that too. And eventually you see him starting, he's got the emotion going on, he's gonna go there, right? And she says, okay, let's go look and see if we can find where the pancakes are. And he immediately starts to calm down because he knows that he's been heard. I just want you to remember as you go through your day that even when our children don't have the functional communication skills and they're having a behavior and they're fussing or they're getting ready to tantrum, to remember how important it is to be heard. And if you didn't have a way to be heard, what would that feel like? How frustrating would that be? What would you be willing to engage in behaviorally to be heard? Whenever my son has a new teacher, I always say to them, his sense of justice is huge. And he has been frustrated over his life that what he is trying to convey is not always heard. And so if you're in a thing with him, before you get to meltdown, I always talk to you guys about stop points for meltdowns and knowing what your child's stop point is. For my son, it's always a thing of where I say, okay, I want to know what you're trying to say to me. So tell mommy what the thing is. Take a breath, slow down, and tell me what the thing is. And that's how I can head meltdowns off at the pass, because he wants to be heard. And that's a lot of our kids. If you see that starting to come, what do you want? What's wrong? What do you need? Whether they have to sign or point, encourage them. You see Jessica always keeping herself calm. There's the moment where there's the applesauce and they're showing him the banana and he doesn't want to look at the banana, right? And he's, and he's having that frustration, wants to be heard. And Jessica doesn't go, calm down, it's going to be okay, because all of that is for ourselves. It's not for the child, right? Don't say those things. Keep it short and sweet. What do you want? And he's reaching out. Now he's at the point where reaching for and pointing is not enough. We're always moving the goalpost further away. So he's got to say, I want applesauce. But when he does, oh, okay, you can have it. No big deal. Nobody's excited, right? Nobody's going, see Jack Riley, all you have to do is ask for it, right? They're saying good talking, reinforcing it. Okay, so much more to talk about: the getting attention, the feeding, all those different things, the age-appropriate straw. How fabulous is that? That in that, I know they condense it, but same day, same clothes. He goes from being introduced to the straw to being able to use the straw. And what a wonderful thing. Okay, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Let's take an itty-bitty bit of a break. We're going to come back and do the viewer response really quickly, and then at 10:30, we've got Merrick Williams in the studio. But don't forget to watch the A Word on their YouTube channel. Stick with us. I'm here today with Sarah Cho, who is the managing supervisor of CARD Fresno. And she's a wonderful resource. And today we're going to be talking with her about using assisted technology.
If you are a parent of a child who is primarily nonvocal and maybe has been using a type of iconic communication system, and you are recognizing that your child has really just outgrown it. It is something, they need something faster, they need something better. There's so much more that we can do in the world of augmentative devices. I am a huge fan of using augmentative device programs on cell phones and also on iPads. As you and I were chatting, we had just downloaded a really simple tap to talk program. So for this one, all a child would need to be able to do is just tap on what they wanted.
I want a drink.
And then that immediately pulls up a screen where there's water, juice, milk, soda, and smoothie. So maybe the child just wanted a drink of their water.
Water, please.
And it's that simple. And there's not a lot to manipulate. The child does not have to have really advanced motor skills at all.
We're seeing more and more organizations advocating getting an iPad because of all those features. But it's not just for kids who are non-vocal.
We have a lot of kids, who have significant impairment in their sensory regulation. They really are seeking visual input, auditory input, tactile input. And if they're learning to appropriately play with a cell phone or with an iPad or with a computer, it provides those levels of appropriate sensory stimulation. So you're getting appropriate sensory, hopefully leading to a decrease in some of those repetitive behaviors, and you're teaching age-appropriate play skills. They have free apps even if you're working on verb use, and the child can actually scroll through the different pictures and practice talking and narrating what they see in the pictures. There's just a lot of wonderful things that you can get from devices nowadays. Whether we're looking at language, social, play.
For my son, it's quite the social thing. When he sees somebody else who has one, he gravitates to them and they start playing together. It really starts the conversation with the other child.
What games do you have? What apps do you have? Can I play that one? Can I see it?
Yeah. And a lot of the apps are super inexpensive or free. Which is, you can't be free. Free is good.
You might have that initial investment in actually purchasing an appropriate device, but then a lot of the software or things that you need, are free or relatively inexpensive. There are also some really nice applications that might be a little bit more expensive, maybe like $20 or $30, where you can essentially download the entire, for example, PEC's icon library for just that little initial, investment.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Well, they just went public the other day, but for some reason I'm having trouble with Facebook. So let's see. Oh, I'm getting it on my phone. It's just my computer here in the studio. So let's see. Our question of the day today was, what's the most ridiculous thing you have heard someone say about autism? We've got some really good ones here. These are pretty ridiculous, right? And then in a few minutes, we're going to bring Merrick Williams into the studio. But here's one that says that the kids are faking. That is ridiculous. Absolutely. Another person who says, can people with autism do the same things that people without autism can do? If a young lady can be on America's Next Top Model with Asperger's, and a young man with Asperger's and Tourette's can be on American Idol, everything is possible. Isn't that the truth? Love that. We want to get James Durbin in here, either Skype or whatever, because he was such an inspiration to our family. And I didn't realize that one of the Next Top Models had Asperger's. That's news to me. Okay, another person that says the most ridiculous thing that they've heard anybody say about autism, that he can control himself. Why does everybody keep babying him? He just needs more discipline. There's nothing wrong that a good whooping won't fix. Oh my. Need I go on? The public needs more education. Families need more support emotionally, etc. Yes, is that not true? Oh, here's a really ridiculous one. All that therapy is a waste of money and time. They'll outgrow autism. Oh, we talked about this on Friday. There's no outgrowing autism. That they would never have guessed because he doesn't look like he has autism. Oh, don't you love that? Another person who says, to me, the most ridiculous thing is when someone says, I'm sorry about my son. I reply, I'm not, I adore him. Another person who says, but he looks normal. He looks totally fine. Yes, because you know that autism thing, it has a look to it. When they find out my daughter has autism, they'd say either I'm sorry or, oh, that's why. Oh, don't you love that? How rude. Other people would say she doesn't look autistic. Is there a look autistic people should have? With 4 question marks. I'm with you. People say that my son looks normal and that he should behave like a normal kid, and also my son has other disabilities which don't help, but he is happy, so that makes me happy. Ignorant people need to kick up the you-know-what and realize what autism is. Thank you. People say all the time, oh, I would never have guessed because she looks normal. I've told the story before about the woman who came up to me in one of those like bouncy house party places, and I was trying to get my son's attention, all this sensory stuff, the fans going and the loud rock music, and there were littler kids at the party, and I was saying to him, you gotta wait your turn, even though there were moms saying, go ahead and go by the little ones at the top of the slide. I said, you gotta wait your turn. I don't care. Just wait and wait and wait and wait. But he would come down the slide and I would try to talk to him, and he wasn't making eye contact because there's so much else going on, and I would, kind of hold his little chin and say, dude, you got to look at me. Come on, where's your eyes? Give mommy your eyes. And then I would praise him and say, okay, so now you got to wait when you get to there was a lot going on, and he was struggling and excited, and, so then he would run away, and this mom said, oh, is he sick? Is he getting a cold? And I said, no. I had no idea what she was talking about. She goes, well, I hope you didn't bring a child who's about to get sick to the party. I was literally like, what is this lady's problem? And then my son came down again and didn't wait for a little one at the top of the slide. And again, I took him aside and took his little chin now because he's having such a hard time looking at me. And I'm holding his chin and saying, sweetheart, you got to look at mommy. And she comes running over and she says, I think he's getting sick. I think, there's something wrong with him. He's getting sick and you should take him and leave. And I'm really looking at this woman going, what? Seriously, what is your problem? And she goes, well, when they get that glassy-eyed thing and they can't make eye contact, that means they're getting a cold. And I sent my son off and I said, no, actually, my son has autism. And you know what she said then? Oh, you'd never know. You just go, oh, lady, there's just so much wrong with this conversation. I don't have time to catch you up. Okay, then another person says, he doesn't look autistic, and then she writes, sigh. Oh, he's a brat and obviously doesn't get any discipline. He needs a good butt whooping. Grr, get educated, people. Anyway, I've been asked over and over what autism is and if it makes them stupid. No, they're really smart. I hate people who ask that kind of you-know-what. Another person who says, watch out for when he gets older. He will run away out the window. My friend's kid. Oh, that's always the brilliant one, right? When they say, my friend's kid. This is hilarious. Somebody says, do you know Doug Flutie? Yes. When I got my little card that said that my child had autism, I got an immediate introduction to Doug Flutie. People are so ridiculous. I used to get from past doctor who told me she has autism. Well, let's see, 2 neurologists, a developmental pediatrician, and a neuropsych. That shuts them up. Oh, okay. So the doctor who's saying who told you that she has autism. Okay. Oh, somebody who says, can you catch that? Or, oh, I see it. He looks different. Oh, 2 of the worst things you can ever say to ask a parent of a child on the spectrum. Another person who says that the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard somebody say about autism, he just refuses to comply. And many times by folks that work in his school. Oh, they have no clue about autism, so they said things that made me more nuts than someone at the park saying he seems normal. Somebody who says, well, he doesn't stim, so there's no way he could be autistic. Another person says, oh, she's just stubborn. She'll outgrow it. There's that outgrow it thing again. Oh, boy. In any case, there's so many more of these. I don't have time to read all of them. But people say ridiculous things, do they not? We have to be able to laugh about it. In any case, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to bring Merrick Williams in. He's got 2 important announcements for us in this next segment, which I know you guys are going to appreciate. So stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provides you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We've had gremlins in the studio while you were gone. and they left us with Merrick Williams, which is our wonderful pleasure to have him with.
Yes.
We haven't been here in a while.
I know, it's been months,
It has
Shannon.
been months.
We can't do it. It's been too
busy.
long.
It has been too long. I've missed you so.
Yes.
So, Merrick, tell the folks at home what your job title is here.
Right. Well, I am, of course, the Skills and CARD Learning and I guess CARD sales manager for the products that we make, our technology products. And lately, as I have before, been going around the country, either online or in person, talking about our wonderful products and what we do in the field. It's exciting.
Which is wonderful. And your background is in education.
Yes, and I spend a majority of my time talking with school superintendents, special ed directors, teachers, all about our wonderful technologies, our skills, our CARD Learning, how they can best use it in their setting, and it's been wonderful.
Well, Merrick, we talk a lot here about the fact that teachers are generally wonderful people who want to be there and want to be efficient, want to be effective, but they don't always have the right tools.
Right. And that's why skills, that's why Cardi Learning have been, I guess, received so well, because they are technology products, so people can access them from at home, from the cafeteria in some cases, in schools, because they don't have to just serve only teachers. I mean, they're looking at all the caretakers, so the people in the cafeteria, people on the bus drivers, all those people can benefit from what we do. And I'm excited to say that we have a lot of people that are involved in it.
That's a wonderful thing. So for people who are new to the show, and we get new viewers every day, let's start with what is Cardi Learning and what are skills? We'll do Cardi Learning first.
So, well, if you can think, and people that watch the show must obviously know of CARD, the Center for Autism-Related Disorders, which has been around for 20 years. And if you can imagine, I guess from a viewer's perspective, everything that the organization has done over the past 20 years basically put into this online environment. So it's all the training that we've done over the past 20 years, training therapists, so any person from any background can actually go on with our Cardi Learning and learn the basics of ABA and how to use it effectively with the child on the spectrum. So it's a wonderful tool. It's great. And skills, if I can say, is basically all the lesson planning. It's everything you need to do an effective, smart, intelligent programming for a child on the spectrum. So it's the assessment, it's the it's the worksheets, it's the handouts, it's the IEP goals, it's all the things that you need to really deliver an effective program.
And you got some exciting things going on for two different categories. I'm going to start with the parents first, and then we'll come back and catch up on the teachers. But as a parent, and I used to be a teacher, but as a parent, I am concerned about the summer coming up. We talked about this a little bit earlier, about how you have what's available to your child shrinks, and if you don't take an active role as a parent, you can have your child regress. And it doesn't matter whether, by the way, whether you have a child who's on the spectrum or not, all kids will, I call it shrinkage. Over the summer, if they don't stay up on skills, you can have skills go away. But especially for our kids who have autism, there is that possibility. And people have been writing in and saying, I don't know what to do for the summer. I can't afford the camps. I can't afford to do this. My services are being cut over the summer. I'm not going to have, any speech support. I'm not having OT. I'm not having, I want my child to progress as opposed to have their skills go away over the summer. And I know you guys came up with something for skills that personally I'm excited about.
Well, I'm pleased to announce, as I did, I think, maybe like 8 months ago or so, when I came on and I talked about Skills for America, and how we were free to schools for the entire year, and that was such a wonderful opportunity, and it was very successful for us. Well, I'm here today to announce that we are giving away skills again, almost. So for parents this time, and any parent who signs up for a month this summer, they will get the entire summer for free.
That's awesome.
So we're excited. So if you go online, people, and you can go to our website, www, I don't even say that anymore, skillsglobal.com, and you sign up for a month, you will get the entire summer for free.
Okay, really amazing.
It's great. It really is. And I'm so excited because I hear all the time from parents, like you said, what are we going to do? It's summertime. The teachers are off. You know what I mean? The school's stopped. So this is a wonderful time to just enroll, and you get the entire summer at no cost. So we're excited for that.
That's an amazing thing. And so if somebody says, okay, all right, I've heard a little bit about skills, what kinds of things can I be doing over the summer? And I think it's as varied and as different as our kids are, because there's no cookie cutter for our kids, right? But I'm thinking I use skills at home. I've shared that before, that's what I do. My son graduated from his ABA program, but that's what we do. And that we were working on the riding the bike without the training wheels. And then we had to stop because he had to work on some visual motor stuff, but we've had the progress there. So we're back in the summer of the bicycle, and that's something that I'm specifically doing. We just revisited shoe tying, because you know what I did, Merrick?
What's that?
I made the mistake that after we did shoe tying, I got him shoes that all had Velcro for 2 years. And then suddenly we had shoe tying again, and he didn't remember how to do it. So and through skills, we totally have shoe tying. He's even double knotting himself now. And those are just some of the skills, but there's also academic things that you can be working working on. You can work on conversation skills, social skills, executive function skills.
Behavior now, right?
Right. Oh, well, and you guys have Behavior Champ as part of that as well?
Behavior Champ is part of that. So what's great is that, you know, for parents who, like you said, don't have the resources and can get skills, and they don't have a teacher or a PT there in the summer, you can go on and you can actually, what is it that you want to work on with your child this summer?
Exactly.
You know, even make it fun. And you search it and you assess it, and you actually get to pull a lesson to actually have some fun with the kid over the summer, which is great.
So let's imagine that you have a 3-year-old that's newly diagnosed. My goodness, there's so many different things that you could work from. Just the academic curriculum, all the things to be helping your child. What I love about Skills is that you do the assessment, and it's going to give you a pool of lessons to choose from, but only things that are age appropriate. Because I know people who are working with a 3-year-old and they're like, well, I know I got to get them ready for kindergarten, but which of these things could I work with work on with a child on the spectrum? What
That's
do I
why
start
the age
with?
appropriate is very important,
It
right?
is very important.
So you don't jump ahead.
Yes.
Right. And you
have
can
an expectation of something that they really can't do at this point, that even a child who had no issues would have difficulty doing. So
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, and you know, that you talk about skills, and then that you also, you know, CARD learning, which is such a wonderful tool as well to do the training over the summer. I mean, we've had tons of people that talk to us and say, listen, you know, I have some downtime this summer. This is a perfect time for me to go on and actually do some learning. So for everyone watching the show today, please take an opportunity to visit that site too, cardelearning.com, and it will help you to, or people that work with the child, or, you know, grandparents, whoever. Babysitters, all that stuff. They get an opportunity in the summer to actually go through and do the training, and they don't have to do it all at one sitting. You know, maybe the most important part you want to deliver is, you know, just educating that person. What is autism? What is ABA? And how, I mean, I think that's the first 1 or 2 modules there. But if they can get to that part, I mean, the steps that they take are so unmeasurable. Because to have that understanding is so essential and key. So, you know, CARD learning and Skills are great products to have over the summer. I think is
absolutely wonderful. I always say when I did CARD learning, Jem had already had 4 years of ABA, and I, you know, I would not have said that I knew everything about ABA. I'm never going to know everything about ABA, but I was amazed at how much I learned after 4 years of therapy, doing it, how much I learned. And the thing that I always say is it made me a better parent.
Yes.
So
we hear it all the time. We hear it all. I just got a message from someone, and she may be watching us right now, in Apalachicola, Florida, and she just talked about the benefits of what we do. And it's so hard, you know, feeling to know some of the stuff, and the people that she's had an opportunity to train as a result, to get a better understanding of her child. So we're excited about them.
Yeah, because you really have been traveling. You get to see people and talk to them face to face and hear the kinds of things that they're doing with CARD learning and Skills. And I love the fact that parents can take it and do things with them, and teachers can take it and do other things with it. They're really quite amazing. So again, for families, for parents, if they buy 1 month, they get the rest of the summer for free.
They do. So
which is
exciting.
Really amazing. That's a great opportunity. You've never done that before.
We've never done that before. It's a first, and I think it's going to be great. I'm really excited about it.
I think so too. So if you're sitting there and you're looking at the beginning of the summer, it's looming in front of you, and you want to have a plan, and you want to end the summer in a better place than where you are now, this is the perfect opportunity to do that. And then where do they go again?
They just go to our site, skillsglobal.com, and register, and you'll get a notification from us that you've received it for free for 2 months, for the rest of the summer, and we're excited. That's really
very cool. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what you're doing for schools, because this is also amazing too.
Yes.
A great thing for everybody to take advantage of. So stick with us. We're going to be back with Merrick Williams in just a minute.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD eLearning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD eLearning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that, they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz. And once you pass that quiz, you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled to be here today with the wonderful Merrick Williams. Wow. You're always such a breath of fresh air. You come in, you have such good energy.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
We were talking earlier about the fact that you've got this new incentive for parents that if they want to do skills for the summer, all they have to do is buy it for 1 month and they get it for the rest of the summer for free.
Yes.
You can't beat that.
You can't beat that.
And then you can stretch out, really use the program, and I'm using it. I love it. So I think it's really an essential tool for a parent to have. But we also wanted to share that you've got an exciting announcement for schools.
Yes. Last year we launched, I think, our biggest campaign ever.
Yes.
Where we were throughout the country and we were talking to schools, and actually schools got CARD e-learning and skills for free.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that was our Skills for America.
For schools who were ready and willing and said, we want to do this and we want to jump in and do it, it was available to everybody for free.
Right.
And a lot of people took advantage of it,
yes.
and enjoyed it and are still using it.
Right, and we took from that and we're launching our new campaign, which I'm happy to announce today, that for all schools who would like, we're doing a 2-hour in-service to their staff. So for people who would like to learn more about what we do and to learn about the products that we sell and the help that we've done, we're doing a 2-hour in-service for schools. And all they need to do is give us a call, and we'll set up a meeting with them. For free. No cost.
Okay, this is what I want people to consider, is that a lot of times schools will pay thousands upon thousands of dollars for this kind of information and this kind of in-service. And we know that our schools don't have budgets right now, right? But you're sitting there at home and you're thinking about the fact that your child's going to go to school next year and that the school staff don't have tools and they don't have information. And this is the skills department saying that they will come out and do a 2-hour in-service at your school. Now, you know, I'm imagining that you guys aren't going to spend $1 billion on advertising to let the schools know this.
Right, we're not. So what I would suggest for you out there, if you are a superintendent or a special ed director, or you are a teacher, or you are aware of someone who does, give us a call. Our number is, I should give that out now.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
877, write this down, guys, 877-975-4559. And just hit extension 907.
Okay.
So again,
and we'll get that up, won't we? We might say it one more time and then have Emily put it up on the screen one more time.
So 877-975-4559. We're extension 907. Just give us a call. We'll set up a conversation with you guys, find out where you are, make sure we can get there.
Right.
And then both me and one of the co-creators, Dr. Del Nadowski, would come out and do a in-service for you and your staff. And we love to do this stuff because we love the spirit of the word.
Now, here's my challenge to the parents, because I know that the teachers who are watching you just took that information, and we'll get you the number again in a second, and this is a wonderful opportunity to save money, get information. Sure. How much better can it get than that? But for the parents who are out there, this is my challenge to you. If you're worried about your child at school, you don't like the way things are going, there's the phone number for you. I want for you to see what you can do to say to your school, you should take advantage of this. This is free, that you can help to set it up, that you'll get them the information, because you want to be sitting across the IEP table with people who've had this in service. Sure. And not against people who don't, right? You want to drop your child off to school in the morning to people who have had this training. And if they can have it for free, what is their big excuse? There isn't one, but I'm counting on you to go and make sure that your school is aware of this. Because we can all sit around and complain, right, about how they don't have the tools, but if we don't do something, they never will have the tools. So that's your charge. That's your assignment. You're going to be working with your child on skills for the summer, but how wonderful for you to be able to give a free training to your school just by making them aware of it. So there's the phone number on the screen. Absolutely no charge to the school. A huge in-service that they'll do for the entire staff. I can't even imagine anything that would be better than that. That makes me so happy because, I sit in here all the time and say, we have to get these people trained. Right. We have to give them access to tools. And so 2 hours free to give them information and training.
That's just awesome.
It's really amazing, Merrick. Awesome. I'm so proud of you guys that you're doing that and doing it for free. I know that's a whole lot of time and energy and effort, but it's life-changing. It's world-changing if people take advantage of it. Yes. But we need to, as parents, we need to advocate for the school to do it. Yeah. Or else, right?
Or else.
Or else.
Parents are our best advocates. We love them. They are, they've helped us get into many schools, so we just hope this is another way to do that.
Absolutely. Okay, so Emily, let's flash that number again up on the screen to let people know the number that you need to call to gain access to these things. But if you want to there's the number for if you want to do the in-service at your school for free. But if they want to do the skills, when they go to register for the 1 month, it'll give them all the information there, and they'll see that they get it for free.
Yes.
Okay, absolutely fabulous. Merrick, thank you so much for coming in and sharing all this wonderful information with us.
I'm always glad to be here. It's like I'm giving gifts. It's the greatest time.
It's fabulous. Free gifts. And heaven knows I like free. Don't you like free? Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by the author of The Juice Box Bully, one of the co-authors, Maria Dismondy, is going to be joining us via Skype to talk about this important bullying book. And we'll look forward to having you in the future come back and talk to us about some of the things that you're hearing back from parents using skills over the summer.
I would love to do that.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Back in a minute.
I'm Monique Erickson. I'm a senior supervisor here at CARD in the training department.
What are some things we should take into consideration when we're working with school-age children?
I think when you're looking at school-age children, what you need to consider is, one, that they're in school all day. They're school-age. So what that means to us is that they're going to be tired by the time they get home. They're having a full day of hopefully demands being placed on them so that they're learning in that environment. But by the time they're home, they've had a pretty good full day at that point already. So you're looking at catching them at the end of their day, the tail end. So I think that's a really big consideration when you're looking at realistically how much time can you get into that day, what can you expect from them at that hour of the day, and so forth.
Realistically, how long can they work?
When you're looking at how long the school-age kids can work, you just remember their day. They've already had a full day, and so you're probably getting them later in the afternoon, maybe 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock, you're maybe getting a couple hours in, maybe going till 6 or so. So you need to take that into consideration. They've had a long day. How long they can work really depends on that child and engaging, when do they start to lose focus? When I've given them breaks and they really can't refocus. That by 5:30 they're done, and it's too difficult, or it's not really effective anymore to move forward later into the evening. So I think that, again, looking at the child as an individual and just gauging how long can they go. It's not going to be, you're not going to be getting 4 hours in after a long school day. That's much too much to expect.
How often should we give a school-age child a break, and how long of a break should it be?
Just by the unfortunate nature of the day, you're running out of time, so there isn't a really big gap between them getting home typically and when you can get that last stretch of the teaching time in. So you want to give them a break. You may have to get started sooner than, maybe they could use a longer break, but there really isn't time to allow for that. A good way to do that is just kind of ease into your session. So maybe start with those lighter lessons that you might have. If you're working on adaptive skills, maybe starting with some of that stuff, maybe having a snack and building into your session so that you go to those more difficult things. But also keeping in mind that you also don't want to say the most difficult thing for the 6 o'clock hour, because that may not be the best time to do that either, because it is such a long day. So I think you have to really know your child, gauge how that day was. Are they really spent from the day that they've had so far? And organize yourself accordingly. And that may vary from day to day. But I do think starting with maybe a snack or easing into that session a little bit with some lighter lessons is a good idea.
How do you keep a school-age child motivated?
I think that there are school-age children that are difficult to motivate or may have different motivators, and there's younger children that are difficult to motivate. So it really is probably a more individualized, looking at that individual person and seeing what is motivating to them and what we need to do. So it might be a little bit different more with older children, but I think that that's probably something we're always looking at when we're doing this type of intervention.
Where can we go to look for ideas of how to motivate them?
When you're looking at motivating our school-age children, I think you want to first, they're an individual, look at what's reinforcing to them. Every child is going to be different, so it's really hard to say this will work for this child, this won't. You have to really look at that child as an individual and assess what they like and may not like. Some good strategies or thoughts, that might help you is maybe looking at their typical peers and what are they doing? What are those school-age children doing? What do they like to talk about and what are they playing with? And try to introduce those to our children. They may take to them right away and they may not, but if you introduce them and kind of guide them in that direction, we might be able to get them on more age-appropriate, types of reinforcers that will be able to mesh better with their peers when we get to the point of having play dates and so forth and working on those social skills.
And what should our expectations be of working with a school-age child?
When you're working with school-age children, some of the things we can expect is, hopefully at that point we have some of the behaviors under control. They're better able to attend and participate in their lessons, but the curriculum starts to change. What we're working on tends to change, and so it may not be going as fast and making these huge leaps and bounds with some of the curriculum areas that we had early on that are more kind of just things that they can memorize and add to their repertoire, like expanding their noun repertoire, their names of objects and so forth. The curriculum starts to get a little more advanced and requires more, so it may take a little bit longer to go through those programs, and that's okay. You should know that because that's what's expected. It's going to take longer to learn some of these skills. We're looking for concept formation versus just memorizing certain information or facts. So I think that that's one thing you can expect. May not go as fast, but that's okay. That's how it is moving through the curriculum. Maybe that they may not have the same amount of energy because they are in school all day and it is the tail end of the day. They are possibly tired, so it may not, you may require more energy on your part or more resourcefulness in coming up with those reinforcers and keeping them motivated and keeping them going. Reading their body language. Do I need to take a break? Do I need to let them get up and move around a little bit to pep them back up so we can keep going? I think those are some things that come to mind when we're looking at what to expect with those kids.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California, and I'm holding up this book for a reason. We're about to be joined by the author, Maria Dismondy, co-author, excuse me. This is called The Juice Box Bully. This is a book that was recommended to me because you guys know that we've been dealing a little bit with bullying issue at home, and it's something that we're talking about a lot in the show anyway because it's a very common problem, and especially for our kids on the autism spectrum. So I asked Maria to be with us today so we could talk a little bit about this book. Maria, are you with us?
I'm with you. Hello.
There you are. Hello. We're so thrilled to have you here today. And I have to say, we've been trying to get Maria on the show for quite a while, and for whatever reason, my email did not like her email. And but I'm so thrilled that we finally got it worked out. But this is a lovely book that you have here. Tell us a little bit about how this book came to be and how you got involved.
Okay. Well, we'll talk a little bit about my first book later, but this book came out of the first book. So I wrote a story about what happened to me when I was a young child being teased. And I have been in education. I taught first and second grade for 12 years. And being in the classroom, I could see firsthand that bullying was a huge issue. And it made me so sad that when I went to go find a book to read to my students and to use as a teaching tool, I couldn't find books. I could find books about animals with bullying. I wanted something that was realistic. I wanted something with children characters. So I wrote my first book, and I was promoting the first book when I met Bob Sorensen, and he is my co-author of The Juice Box Bully. And Bob approached me and said, I love that you're passionate about what you're doing. Would you co-author a book with me? And so Bob and I came together and worked on the concept of the bystander. And that's really what The Juice Box Bully focuses on, is looking at not only the bully and the victim, but all the other people who are involved in bullying.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing because I don't think we're going to see any substantive change with bullying unless we can attack it from that point of view, that it really takes a community for bullying to happen. Absolutely. So I really appreciate that about this book, and it's a fairly, I mean, you can see I'm showing the pictures here, lovely illustrations. It's an easy enough book to read that you could do this with a first grade class, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the reading level is going to be more of like a third, fourth, maybe even fifth grade, but the concept can be with children as young as 5 years old. My young 3-year-old understands the concept of the book.
Yeah, and yet I could easily see this being used for kids who are older too. That the kids in the drawing seem to be older kids, so that it still has that cool factor for the 6th and 7th graders. And what I really love about it, I don't want to give the story away so much, but it is that, as you said, it's about the bystander. But what I really love about it too, Maria, is that it goes to the heart of, we all tend to think that the bully is somebody else, and yet we know that bullies generally are people who were bullied, and how easy it can be to become a bully yourself if you're not careful.
Absolutely, and you'll see that in the book with the main character. You find out what his history was.
Yeah, and so it's really lovely and encourages everybody to be a part of the situation so that nobody allows the bullying to happen, to the point that in the back of the book you have something called The Promise. Tell us about The Promise.
Well, The Promise is something we really wanted to not only write the book. I mean, writing the book was the first step, but we wanted to use this as a platform. I go around to different schools in Michigan. I Skype with schools all over the country talking about the concept of bullying. So we really wanted the book to be a platform to going out and speaking and spreading this message. And so The Promise is just another way that schools can help us spread this message within their own building. So The Promise is a pledge, and children, the teacher can go to the back of the the book, and there's several different bullet points. And the teacher can teach the children what those different bullet points mean. So, for example, I'll give you one. I will speak up instead of acting as a bystander. So really teaching your students, what does it mean to be a bystander? And the schools can then use that. They post it up in their school, in their hallways. There's promise posters all over the place, and they can use it as reference all throughout the year. So kids can keep going back, remembering that a promise is something you've made to carry through forever.
Absolutely. And I know you've got a wonderful website that has a bunch of information about your books and about the promise and about what you do. Let's tell folks at home your website.
Yeah, the website is www.mariadismondy.com, and I do have some free resources for teachers and parents on there as well. Each book has a reading guide that has lesson plans for the classroom, cooking activities, different things that you can do, discussions that you can have with your child at home if you're reading the book. So a lot of free resources, and I am a daily blogger. So I blog about parenting, about teaching, and about living your best life and helping raise children to live their best life too.
It's really a lovely book, and your website is lovely. And I do want to point out, because what we talk about here is usually kids on the autism spectrum, and this book is not about that. It's about bullying in general, but I think that's a really good thing for our kids, because not only do our kids need to see this, but the kids that our kids go to school with need to see this book.
Absolutely.
And I also want to point out that I found out about your book through a webinar that I had attended about preventing bullying, about our kids on the spectrum, preventing them from becoming bullies and from being bullied, and this was the book that they recommended.
Oh, excellent.
So a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so you are seeing this book being used in the schools.
Yes.
And what are the different ways, some of the different ways that they're using the book in classrooms?
Well, the poster is a great visual, so the teachers will teach one concept per day at the beginning of the school year, and they use it as their rule setup. So teachers spend the first couple of weeks of the school year setting up rules and boundaries and expectations, and so the Juice Box Bully is being used as a part of setting up those classroom rules. And every now and then I'll Google the book to see what else is on the internet, what's new, and one of the schools put on a play, and they acted out the Juice Box Bully, and so that was on YouTube. So schools are really using it in a lot of different ways.
A wonderful, wonderful thing. Well, fabulous. We're going to take a little bit of a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk with Maria more about her other book, and why can I not think, and it's the Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear about that when we come back, which will be very interesting, and stick with us for more, because we may have an opportunity for you at home to win something. Stick with us. Well, today we're going to be talking about how to teach children to recognize other people's emotions. Why is that important to teach kids with autism spectrum disorders?
Children with autism have difficulty recognizing other people's emotions, and we as people generally do things or don't do things based on how other people react. And so it's really important to teach our children how to recognize the emotions of others so that they know how to behave or not behave. And so it's really important too that they start to pick up on how other people feel, because it will determine should they continue acting a certain way around children in a play group, or should they do things to make their parents happy or other family members happy. So it's very important that they become aware and recognize what different emotions look like.
So how do we go about teaching it?
So basically, we generally start with trying to recognize other people's emotions by doing it through a photograph or in a book or through pictures, because that's something that's a lot more salient or easier to identify than a person that might be right in front of me, because maybe there's a lot of distractions going on, or that everybody's going to express their emotions in a different way. But then you want to make sure that you're taking the time to go into real life,
pointing it out, whether it's contrived, for example. So I say, hey, you two over there, I want one of you to be happy, and then I'm going to ask the child to see if they can recognize that emotion, because maybe something else is going on that's also making them happy, like you handed them a present. You want to make sure then that you start fading away from the contrivedness of it, so as it's actually occurring in real life, because a lot of times our kids have difficulty generalizing, and just because you teach it from a photo, or I sit here and I say, how do you feel, doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to transfer the skill. It's one of the primary deficits of kids on the spectrum is generalization. So it's very important that we're teaching it at different levels, because ultimately everything that we are teaching them, we want them to be able to use in everyday life.
Yeah.
So that eventually we even lead up to, hey, if somebody's on the playground being mean to you, how is that going to make you feel? And they might say, well, it's going to make me angry. Well, what can you do about that in that situation? And then also eventually teaching them, this is what you can say or do in that situation. But again, rehearsing that just in having a conversation is not necessarily going to mean that the child is going to start exhibiting that skill.
Right.
So what I might do then is, for example, let's say we're going on the playground, and I know that it is in the past been a time that the child might get mad at somebody because maybe a child on the playground often always wants a turn. Right. And so I might say to the child before we go on the playground, hey, if someone takes the ball away from you, what might you say or do? And so then I'm kind of priming them or coaching them before the situation occurs. That's still a prompt, but it's a step towards generalizing the skill into everyday life. But the goal then would be eventually that I don't have to remind them of that before the situation occurs. They will have the scenario occur to them and then immediately know the correct reaction or response that they need to give.
Right. And I can't say it enough. It builds on so many other things. Being able to recognize your own emotions, taking other people's perspectives, understanding where they're coming from. So a really worthwhile thing to work on.
And absolutely, and especially too because it emerges so early.
Yeah.
But it continues to develop for quite a long period of time too.
Yeah.
So yes, a lot of skills that build on from recognizing emotions of others and also your own emotions as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Our special guest via Skype right now is Maria Dismondy. She is the co-author of this book, The Juice Box Bully, which I had mentioned that I heard about in a webinar about autism and bullying and couldn't wait to get my hands on it. I ordered 2 copies, one for us to have at home that I read with my son, and another that I gave to his school, first to his teacher and then ultimately to the principal, because there's this wonderful promise in the background. And I have to say, I also downloaded from your website, Maria, the promise, the pledge, and had copies of it made so all the kids in my son's class could color it and sign it and do all that. They had just finished a unit on community, and so it was very timely. It was a wonderful thing for me to be able to send as a parent and say, here, something to be able to be used. And I bought this. I don't remember whether I got it on Amazon.com or whether I ordered it from BarnesandNoble.com, but one of them, so it got shipped directly to my door. It was very inexpensive and really wonderful book to share with your kids, whether they're on the spectrum or not. All of our kids need to know about bullying and know that they can stand up, that they don't have to be a bystander, they don't have to allow it to happen, and they don't have to be the bully. So wonderful, wonderful book. But this is not your only book, is it?
No. I just finished my 4th book on Friday. It'll be out next year. So.
Okay. Tell us about the first one, though, Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun, because this is fascinating to me.
Yep, Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun. Here it is. It actually just came out in hardcover on Thursday last week.
Congratulations.
So. Thank you. Yeah, so Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun was written in 2008, and it focuses on the individual and really empowering children to be who they are and to feel good about themselves, and not to be afraid to be who they are, to have that courage to go to school as themselves. So the story is about a little girl who has big poofy hair. It's written based on what happened to me when I was younger. She's teased for the silly foods that she eats, like spaghetti and a hot dog bun, for the clothes that she wears, etc., etc. And the story has a twist. I won't, tell you exactly what happens, but the story has a twist that she's really faced with a decision to make when the bully is in trouble and there's no one there to help him. So kind of have to see what she decides to do. But it's a great story. And just like in the Juice Box Bully, how I provide a promise, in this story there is something in the back that provides different things that the children can do. Just empowering messages like be yourself and stand tall, never give up, share a smile, spread kindness. So there's 10 different messages in the book that teachers and parents can use to teach the story and the concept of believing in yourself.
Well, another wonderful book for our kids, because a lot of our kids on the spectrum, they're quirky, they're different, and it's always a difficult thing for them that they're looked at as being different, but being able to get the message that different is okay, that it's not a disease. What a wonderful thing. And you've got another book. Tell me about Pink Tiara Cookies for 3.
Yeah, Pink Tiara Cookies for 3 came out a couple months ago, and I have a different illustrator. So she's out of Seattle, Washington, Carrie Pilo. She's great to work with. And it's a story about 3 friends. One friend is always left out. And it talks about a subtle type of bullying, which we see all the time, and children don't really understand that it's bullying. It's when one friend will threaten another friend to get what they want. So, for example, in the story, Sammy threatens her best friend Stella and says, if you play with Jasmine, you're not going to be my best friend anymore. And so she's threatening, and she's not allowed to make up rules for her friends like that. And so it really talks about how, yes, that's a type of bullying. You don't get to control your friends. You don't get to make up rules for your friends. And the story goes through to find out, how does she really make room for another friend in her life and realize that you can't alienate people. So
this is a great book for our kids on the spectrum, because our kids are very rule-oriented, and a lot of times they don't understand in playing in a circle of friends or 3 friends, and a lot of times our kids are the ones that are guilty of this, saying, well, so-and-so doesn't want to play with me because they're playing with somebody else. So a really great jumping off point for our kids. And of course, when you were telling me about this book, I said, well, I know some adults I'd like to give this book to.
Absolutely.
Because there are adults who don't know the rules of friendship, and that you can't order a friend to not play with somebody.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes. So maybe good for everybody. You give it to your friend's child, hoping that they'll read it to them at bedtime, and maybe they'll figure it out. But wonderful.
And this story has, the main characters are all girls, and the story I just finished has all boys as main characters. So for those listeners out there who say, well, that book has all girls, I'm being fair, and my all-boy book is coming out in the spring of next year.
Okay, wonderful. So again, we want to tell people that they can go to your website, mariadismondy.com, for more information and more resources. But Maria, I understand that you're going to give away a set of all 3 of your books to one of our viewers.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put up on our Facebook page, Autism Live, some instructions of what you need to do, and then we'll figure out who the winner is, and we'll have those shipped out to you. So again, you'll have the opportunity to win all 3 of the books.
And they'll be signed too.
Oh, that's even better. So signed versions of all 3 of the copies, and we'll put up the instructions of how we're going to do that on our Facebook page, which is Autism Live on Facebook. Maria, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll look forward to having you back on when your new book comes out next spring. But keep us posted, and we'll let you know who the winner is of the books.
Good luck.
Thank you so much, Maria. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So again, Maria Dismondy, and this is a really good book. Like I said, I heard about this at a conference and a webinar, and they were saying, get this book for yourself, something to read with your child, wonderful illustrations, and get a copy for your school. And it was inexpensive enough that I thought that it was well worth it to do that. And her website is also written in here, but it's mariadismondy.com, and you get the promise at the back of the book, and you can go on her website and print that out and take it into the school. It's a wonderful little coloring project for the people in the class, and they get to sign it and they can hang them up around the room. We need to change the way bullying works in our classroom. It's important for our kids, it's important for all of the kids, and this is a great way to start early on. So thank you to Maria Dismondy. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we've got some fun and interesting things to talk about, not the least of which is our funding tip for the week. So stick with us.
Hi, I'm here today with Cecilia Knight, who is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And she's going to talk to us about something that I'm not entirely clear on, tacting. Tacting is when you make a comment on the environment, and then another person may reinforce that with non-specific reinforcement. Can you explain to me what the difference between a tacting program is and an expressive labeling program? In an expressive labeling program, typically the therapist holds up a card, maybe with a turkey on it, and the therapist would say, "What is this?" referencing the picture. And the child would respond, "Turkey." The child is labeling the item. With a tact, it's a comment on the environment. So it can be evoked by a smell. So if I walk into the house and I smell Thanksgiving dinner, I can say, turkey. Or if I hear gobble, 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 I can say, that's a turkey. So it's a comment on the environment, which is different than just naming the item. How do you get a child to comment on the environment? That's got to be hard. It is. We use different prompts. Most of the time we use vocal prompts. For example, we may look through a book and point to the picture of an item and say, "Oh, look, it's Nemo." Say, "Nemo," and then reinforce the child for responding. Or we may say, "What do you see?" Say, "Nemo." And then eventually we would want to fade our point away. So I may say, "Look, Nemo," and then the child is referencing that and then also saying, "That's right, I see Nemo." And then later fading completely away so the picture of Nemo itself evokes the comment. If we're working on something auditory, maybe we have a cow on the table and we play the environmental sound in front of them, maybe give them a vocal prompt to say, "It's a cow," and the child may say, "It's a cow." And then we might fade the visual of the cow and they just hear the sound. And we prompt them by saying, say, "It's a cow," or "I hear a cow," and then eventually fade until the sound itself evokes the comment. The goal is to get towards spontaneous tacting, where the child can walk around and comment on the novel things in the environment that he hears or sees. And so that's a great way to sort of bridge to that point. Tacting is really important to get to higher level lessons of interverbal behavior. Commenting on things that are private events, or commenting on things that I can't see that you're feeling, like your stomach hurts. But it's important to have those tacts in place so you can get to those later programs.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And it's Monday, so I like to give you a funding tip every Monday. And look at Emily. She's got all these lovely slides now that magically appear. She does such a good job. Emily Goodwin, technical director. Do not hire her away from us. But she's fabulous. In any case, she's, hey. In any case, I know, part of what I choose to do on Monday, we talk about the stress and we talk about the funding. It's like the alpha and the omega, right? It's they kind of go hand in hand for me, that we have to manage our stress and we have to manage the funds, because we know that this is going to be a long journey, right? It's the marathon, not the sprint, and we have to be able to make it to the end and beyond. If I know personally as a parent that I think back and I look at other people that I know, even recovered kids whose moms aren't there anymore because I'm sure part of, their health wasn't maintained through this process. I don't want that to be my story, and I'm sure you don't want that to be your story either. But one of the things that can really add to the stress and add to not taking care of ourselves is not having the funding for it. Because if we're trying to put every single resource that we have into helping our child, a lot of times what we need comes 38th on the list, right? Let's be honest about it. So I like to give you a little funding tip to go with your stress tip, because if we get the funding in place, sometimes that it doesn't completely remove the stress, but it doesn't hurt. Let's say that, right? I love people who say, well, having all the money in the world doesn't make you happy. No, but it's a lot better than being miserable and broke, right? Right? Okay, so from time to time we talk about different places that you can help yourself financially on this journey. So the one that I wanted to bring up today is the United Healthcare Children's Fund that does give grants for $5,000. And these are a one-time grant. There's the web address that you can go to. And the reason why I'm bringing this up today is because it isn't one that has a deadline per se, that there's only a certain time of the year. We talk about Act Today grants a lot. But there are different times of the year when you can apply for an Act Today grant. But the United Healthcare Children's Foundation, they're there year-round, and they take grant submissions. At least last time I checked with them, they took them on a regular basis. This is a $5,000 grant, but there are specifics to it. You need to go to this website and take a look and see. They won't fund just anything. You have to have FDA-approved things that they will, but it is my understanding, and I've heard from people that they have been able to get this grant for testing. They've been able to get this grant for diagnoses. They've been able to get this grant to help them to be able, from time to time we'll talk about if a child has a special health issue, to be able to see a specialist. And it is my understanding that they also will give that grant for ABA therapy, which is an important distinction to make, because I know you guys are frequently in a position where you're saying, I just can't afford ABA. And while $5,000 doesn't get you all the way done, sometimes it can help you to get started. Sometimes it can help you to get the diagnosis that you need so that you can qualify for another funding source. So what's lovely about it is that it's a grant for $5,000. It isn't something that you have to pay back. So I encourage all of you to apply for the grant. And it's going to be paperwork, right? But if you stop and think about how far $5,000 will go and how many hours it will take you to fill out the paperwork, I think you'll see that it's worth it, especially when it isn't something that you have to pay back. For a lot of you, you may have a deductible. As far as I am told, that it will cover deductible because it's, you're paying for the service. So for a lot of you that are starting insurance, either just started or about to start it, maybe you have a $5,000 deductible that you're saying to yourself, I'm no better off than I was before, that I have to pay $5,000 out of pocket before they'll pay this $36,000 or this $64,000 for what my child needs this year. Well, apply for this grant, and there's your deductible. You pay the first $5,000 with that, and then you have access to maybe $110,000 more of treatment in the next year. Really worthwhile to do. It is going to be some paperwork, but get somebody to help you. Ask somebody. We said earlier for your stress tip, maybe you've got a friend who's really good at filling out paperwork or just incredibly patient, and ask them to come and do it with you. I know sometimes it means disclosing what your financial situation is, but hopefully you have at least one friend that you'll trust with that kind of information. Okay. So again, you have to apply for grants where you can get them, right? And this is a place where you can get a grant for up to $5,000. but it's a one-time grant. But you might as well get it now, right? At whatever point you're at, I'm sure you could use $5,000 towards your child's treatment today. So United Healthcare Children's Foundation, and there you have the website one more time. And then let us know. Let us know if you get the grant, if you're filling out the paperwork and you say, this is not a small thing, this is a huge thing, Shannon. It's not worth the $5,000 to fill out the paperwork. If that's what it is, let me know so we won't give the same information to people. But I'd love to hear that you got the grant and what you used it for. Stick with us. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about an adaptive tip. We haven't had the time to do an adaptive tip for a couple of weeks, so I'm excited about that. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
Welcome. We're here with Cecilia Knight. She is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, so it's a rare treat to have her here. And right now I want to talk about self-stimulatory behavior.
Well, I guess textbook, we're looking at any ritualistic or stereotypical behavior that a child engages in repetitively. The thought is the more appropriate replacement behaviors that we teach, the more those items become more reinforcing and give the child access to whether it's visual stimulation or auditory stimulation or tactile stimulation. So those now more appropriate activities would be more reinforcing. So it's important to teach something that competes and that is more fun than engaging in the self-stimulatory behavior. All self-stimulatory behavior is automatically reinforced, meaning the behavior itself feels good for whatever reason. I have no visual stimulation, so I flap my hand in front of my eye and now I have visual stimulation. So you're looking for a replacement that matches. I had a little girl one time who was not talking but was singing, and it was very repetitive and the same song over and over. Music became a big interest. So when we gave her a voice to have a conversation, the vocal stereotypy decreased dramatically.
Yes, tell me. Oh, you want lip gloss too?
Do you find that sometimes parents are hesitant or resistant to replacing a self-stimulatory behavior?
Yes. It's very difficult to always be looking out for that self-stimulatory behavior. I do think you have to help a parent understand that those things like riding the scooter will eventually replace the self-stimulatory behavior.
A lot of us have been there. That's not where we want to be. It just felt like, wow, I'm going to take away the thing that makes him feel okay, and he's working so hard and doing this.
But also know that that's the point of intervention, is not to take away all the things that are reinforcing to the child, but to give them other options that are more appropriate. It's difficult to engage with your child many times in a self-stimulatory behavior because there's a pattern or routine, and it's hard to engage with them. So trying to bring them into activities that are reinforcing with others.
Where did they go? Oh, nice job. He needs a nose too. Where does his nose go? What else? What else does he need? This is my potato.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and it's Monday, and we've had some really wonderful guests in the studio with us today, one via Skype. But it's time for us to talk about an adaptive skills tip. Now, adaptive skills, these are the kinds of things that our children are going to need to do to be able to function in their everyday, every world life, right? These are things like making a bed. This is setting the table, knowing how to order food at a restaurant, being able to shop for the food that you need. These are the real life skills. feeding yourself. I mean, there are things that we can start very young with children. Toileting is in the adaptive skills arena, being able to zip their pants. Those are all in the adaptive skills, real life skills. And what we see with our kids is that frequently they're behind in a lot of different areas. And so that bleeds over into the adaptive area. That our kids can be, not all of them, but can be behind on those kinds of skills. A lot of times they go hand in hand with something else. So for instance, being able to zip up your pants, well, that's a skill, right? Zipping, but it also requires certain dexterity that are finger skills and hand skills that we're going to work on in the motor development, right? So what we'll see is that frequently these things will have a payoff in other areas, or we need a prerequisite from another area to be able to do the adaptive. And a lot of these things, while we may not think of them as social skills, being able to do them really helps to set a child up for better success within the social arena. So today I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about chores, about why we should have our children do chores, and how we want to teach it and how we want to reinforce it. That what we see time and time again, especially in the adaptive skills area, there are things that you can teach your child, even in the language arena, that they don't really notice what the benefit is to them in the moment. Even when we're teaching functional communication skills, we notice the benefit because we notice the child's behavior, but to the child, it's not necessarily as evident. And they'll be pleased with themselves, and there'll be a certain amount of pride that they did it, but not the same as what we get usually bang for our buck in the adaptive arena. When we teach a child adaptive skills, what we see a lot of times is that the child has a sense of self and pride that comes with it that really changes how the child motors themselves through their world. Quite honestly, we see this with toileting, that if a child can get toileting under control, that they just walk different, they carry themselves different, they behave differently. Because really it's a measure of control for them, right? Well, when we teach a child how to do household chores, we are empowering them. I know that, when we look at stuff in the play curriculum and we say, well, it should be fun for them because play is fun, right? Except sometimes it's not. And we don't even have to look at people on the spectrum to know that. I always like to say, Angry Birds, I just don't get it. It's not reinforcing to me. I don't know what everybody sees in it. My husband and my son play it and I go, it's work to me, right? It's of no interest to me whatsoever. And yet I love to play other games. But Angry Birds is not play to me. Well, I know some people that think the most exciting thing to do is scrub their kitchen floor. This would not be me, right? So I come to teaching chores with the assumption of, this is drudgery. And I shouldn't, because for some of our kids, it's big excitement. Big excitement that they think it's exciting. If you've ever been around any kind of a 2-year-old that, putting clothes into a laundry basket is just a pile of fun for them. It is for some of our kids on the spectrum, and it is for some of our kids who aren't on the spectrum. The truth of the matter is, though, is that we can make it fun and exciting no matter what it is. There's on HBO, they have those, we don't watch them anymore because my son's so much older now, but it's called the Art Classics, I think, the series that they take a little cartoon baby, and then they have different stories that are set to different classical pieces of music. And so cartoon plays and different themes for different songs. My son loved this as a baby because he's very into music. And there's one in particular, and I wish I could think what the song was. It's kind of a jazzy kind of a song, but it showed a hippo, a mama hippo, and a baby hippo. And they were going around their house doing the chores. They made a pizza and they stuck it in the oven, and then they mopped the kitchen floor, and they went downstairs and put the clothes in the washing machine, and they made the beds, and they were running the vacuum cleaner, and then they got the clothes out of the washing machine and put them in the dryer and hung some of them up on the line. And then they heard the ding of the pizza, and they went upstairs to have the pizza knowing that their house was clean. And the baby hippo was so excited the whole time because they were with their mom, and the mom kept making it fun. And I remember watching that with my son as a baby, and if I went to go sweep the floor, my son, who wasn't very interactive at that point, would come over and he wanted to sweep the floor. Always loved the broom and loved the vacuum cleaner. We've talked about that before. Obsessed with the vacuum cleaner. Wanted to take it apart, turn it on, turn it off, suck things up with it. We can make, if it's already reinforcing to them, there's no reason, like we don't want to make it so that the child continues to perseverate on the vacuum cleaner, right? But that's not to say that we can't take the vacuum cleaner out and show the child the appropriate way to deal with the vacuum cleaner and have that be reinforcing, and then have the period of time when we put the vacuum cleaner away, right? Have it be in its rightful place with the right amount of interest in it. So we can play on the things that they're already interested in, and the things that they don't find interesting, we need to make those reinforcing. But there is an entire set of reasons why teaching a child to do chores is really good for them. First of all, it's good for us to have another person in the family who is contributing to the well-being of the family, and that they're contributing to their own well-being is helping to prepare them for being older. Also, if we're trying to gain compliance and we know we want to catch them doing something good, chores are a daily ritual that we can put in place, that we can reinforce them for, and it's another way to catch them doing something good. Because if we prompt for the child to make their own bed, and then one morning they get up and make their own bed, this is reason to set off the fireworks and talk about how fabulous the child is being, and reinforce. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But we'll also see another paycheck that comes from it is the child feels like they are a part of the family. They, as much as we probably aren't aware of it, there is some receptive stuff that our kids get that we're not even aware of, right? So to see that other siblings are doing chores and being reinforced for it, and to be a part of the whole, is very reinforcing for our kids. Maybe not for all of them, but for a lot of them. So we give them that self-esteem that you can help too. You're a part of this family and you contribute to this family. And look at you, you just pulled up the covers. Make it age appropriate. There's wonderful lessons, by the way, in skills. But we're not expecting a 2-year-old to make hospital corners, right? Not when they're 2. Maybe by the time they're 12. Maybe we're looking at hospital corners. Even then, I don't think I can make a hospital corner. In any case, let's take a break and we'll be back in just a minute.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3. They shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down, and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job!
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November. It seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. On Monday, we usually take a few minutes to talk about the difference between NET and DTT. DTT, discrete trial teaching, NET, natural environment training. They're both things in our toolbox that we want to be using as a part of ABA to help our children to reach their highest potential. I talked a little bit about NET in particular last week, and I want to talk a little bit about DTT. DTT, both of them actually. DTT is, we'll see from time to time when we see a child sitting at a table, or when we see it on the A word, and usually Jessica, she has a book out, and because he's still little to be sitting at a table and learning, so she has a book out and she has stimuli on the book, and she says, give me the yellow one, right? So when we're doing that, this is how we work on receptive. I promised you we were going to be talking about teaching language. This is how we work on receptive language, because if I say, give me the yellow one, then what I'm working on is on receptive understanding of the word yellow. That he's hearing yellow, and then he can give me the yellow one. And of course, there are lots of different lessons in skills to be taught this way for receptive. But eventually we would want to take that same lesson, put it into the natural environment, right? So that it's not this formalized setting where we're doing trial after trial after trial, but we're out someplace and something's happening and the child is playing with something, and it's very directed by the child. That's the NET, the natural environment training. And then we would say, do you see yellow, or what color is the duck? But that would be more expressive. So I would, for receptive, I would be wanting saying, point to the yellow one. Which one is yellow? And the child can point to the duck, and then eventually I would want to work on the expressive of it as well, and say, what color is the duck? And the child would say yellow. And eventually I would get the child to say, the duck is yellow. So that I would be getting the expressive and the receptive, because there's no reason why we can't be working on both at the same time, right? But really important to note the difference and that you use both of them. I can't tell you, I know that there are camps, right? Within our community, there are camps of people and people who just love DTT and think that DTT is the be-all, the end-all, the most fabulous thing under the sun. And I can completely understand why they think that, because it's a great way to be able to acquire a skill in the beginning stages. It's absolutely unbeatable for acquiring a beginning skill, especially for a child who is having difficulty getting the skill. It's truly miraculous. But if all we ever did was teach DTT, what we would have is a bunch of children who can mechanically answer something and don't really possess the skills. We don't want that. Then I have other friends who are all about natural environment training, and they don't want to do DTT at all because they feel like it's going to create a robot child. And what both camps are missing is that you've got to do both of these. You just have to. You can't be in the DTT camp or be in the NET camp by themselves and expect to get the most possible progress. But if we start with the DTT and we introduce the skills and then we take it and we put it in the natural environment, what we're going to get are kids who possess these skills in a way that they're their own. I know I always like to give the example of when I learned how to drive, and it was very mechanical in the beginning, and now I drive fluidly, right? I can turn the wheel like my mother used to do it with the palm of my hand. I don't do it so much that way, but I can if I had to, right? But so important that we look at both of these things and see them as a progression and make sure that we do DTT and NET. Really, really essential. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and then we're going to come back and close out the show. Stick with us.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, to celebrate you is greater now that I can. You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I'm awe of and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up CARD, all of you, is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering love and commitments to helping others and me recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with CARD who isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful in what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That was the wonderful Nick Yates that you just saw, a young man who recovered from autism. And I'm always amazed wherever I go, whoever I talk to, at the people who are stunned by that word, recovery. I want to point out to you, and we haven't talked about this in a while on the show, but if you're a new watcher, I want you to know that there is such a thing as recovery from autism. It's not a myth. That there are children, let's be clear about what recovery means. There are people who get to the point where they've had a diagnosis, they qualify for a diagnosis, but they acquire skills and get to a point where they no longer qualify for the diagnosis, and not because somebody changed the diagnosis. All right, I know we're looking at a change in the DSM, but not because of that children get to a point where they no longer qualify for the diagnosis. We know that kids go in and they are in different places and we all have different things that show up on the spectrum, right? At least one or two things, but we don't qualify for the diagnosis because you have to have 6 total, a minimum of 6 total, 2 from the social curricula, or 6 from the social arena, 1 from the language, and 1 from the repetitive at a minimum, right? For a total of 6. And so, but I can look at that and go, oh, well, sometimes I struggle with this, that, or the other thing, and I don't qualify for an autism diagnosis, right? And at a certain point, there are some kids that get to the point where they don't qualify for the diagnosis anymore. And that's what recovery means, getting to the point where you no longer meet the diagnosis criteria. For the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they have additional criteria before they deem somebody recovered. They have to be in completely included school with no extra supports whatsoever and be getting at least a C average with no other supports, or they are not considered recovered. And they basically, my personal definition is that there is nothing hindering them from the things that they want to do. That is not to say that they are like every other person, because we're not looking to turn people into cookie cutters, right? We want them to be their own individual people and be who they are. But I don't know about you as a parent, I don't want my child to be held back. I want him to be differently abled, not disabled, differently abled. And that is possible. That is absolutely possible. We know that from studies, science has shown us very clearly, the research shows us that if we give the right amount of ABA to children over the right amount of time, that roughly 47% of them are going to reach the point of recovery, especially if we can get in there early enough, that roughly 47% of them. I think that's a wonderful thing, and we should never discount that at all. So if you're not used to hearing the word recovery, I want you to know that it is out there. What about the other 53% of the kids? By the way, my son's in the other 53%, and he's doing so well. My son has not recovered from autism. He still needs additional support in order for him to be able, he's in speech therapy, he has OT, but we get closer and closer every day to being in a place where he doesn't need those supports. And he's doing wonderfully. He's going to have a rich, full life in front of him. So I want you to know that ABA is worth the time, it's worth the effort, and for some kids, they're going to get to the point where autism is not a part of their everyday life, which is an amazing, amazing thing. So many things that I want to talk to you about for the rest of the week. We're not going to get to all of them because we've only got a few minutes left here, but I want to bring up a couple of things in particular. That on Wednesday, we're always joined by Evelyn Gould at 10 o'clock in the morning. She introduced to us last week ACT, and I'm blanking on what the words stand for. Acceptance Commitment Therapy. That's what I want to say. And we're going to talk more with her about that this week, and I'm really excited about that. Also on Wednesday, we have Nancy Allspaw Jackson visit us, and she is the executive director of ACT Today, and she's bringing with her a special guest on Wednesday, Joey Travolta from Inclusion Films. We're really excited about that. We're going to talk about how we can use filmmaking as a way of helping our children to gain a skill that's going to help them throughout their life, whether they go into filmmaking or otherwise. Really exciting. I want to remind you that as this show ends, the conversation continues. There's always so many ways to get in touch with us. Emily's going to start to show some of those to you on the screen. Please email us. Please write to us and tell us what we can do to help you on your journey through autism. You can also call us. You can Skype us. You can Facebook us. You can tweet with us. And there are lots of ways in which you can be watching us on Blip TV, on YouTube, on iTunes. fascinating ways that you can pause us, rewind, look up a specific topic. You want to know about toileting. We had a fabulous guest last week, Dr. Amy Kenzer, talking specifically about toileting. So wonderful ways for you to participate with us so that we can help you to help your child. That's really what we're about here. If we're not getting that done, please give us some suggestions. Be a part of this conversation. Let's make this, how often do we get this opportunity, right? So let's make it count for you. I want to be on your team because I had really good people on my son's team and it made all the difference. So I want to be on your team and help you to know that this too shall pass, right? We can be in a whole different place. That challenging behavior that's been kicking your family's keister for a while, it does not need to be. We're going to talk more about challenging behavior tomorrow. So lots of different things to talk about. Want to remind you that Maria Dismondy is going to be giving out all 3 of her books, The Juice Box Bully, Spaghetti on a Hot Dog Bun, and Pink Tiara Cookies for 3 signed. But you need to go, we'll get that information up this afternoon on our Facebook page. Go there and like us and check out how you can get these books. One viewer is going to get them shipped directly to them. So check out our Facebook page, Autism Live on Facebook, and you too can have a copy of all 3 of the books. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you so much, and give your kiddos a hug from us. Bye-bye for now.